debate. For me, your man, Louie T. Welcome to the command post. You know what it is. Post up and take command. I, of course, am your commander-in-chief, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. So, number of topics I want to get to tonight. So I told you guys on the last video that I was going to give you my biggest what the F moment of the 2022 season. I'm going to save that for a video that I will upload on Saturday because I want to do what I did the last time. And I want to read your comments because I've already read most of them, and like 2 or 3 of them really stood out, but I want to read all of them that are pertinent to the topic at hand. So I'm going to devote an entire episode. So if you haven't commented and you would like to have your comment read, as long as it has something to do with the topic that we were discussing, which was what was your biggest what the F moment of the 2022 season, go watch that video, leave a comment in the comment section, and more likely than not, your comment will end up being read and reacted to on the next video. I'll save my biggest what the F moment for that video, and I'll disclose it at that time. So I know I told you guys initially that you would get that tonight from me. I changed my mind because, we got a lot of responses from the question that was posed. And so I kind of want to engage with those comments in its own space on its own video. So wanted to just give you a heads up on that. With that said, a couple of things transpired this week. We're still in the midst of this offensive coordinator search that seems to be long and drawn out. We're starting to see some of the dominoes fall, though. We're starting to see teams fill their vacancies. We've seen some head coaches get jobs. We've seen some offensive coordinators settle into some spots. So the pool is starting to shrink. I think Washington is really zeroing in on some prime candidates. I talked about this on Protect Sports' channel, and we're going to really elaborate on it tonight because I think I have an inkling as to what direction they're going to ultimately go in. I haven't gotten my flowers yet for the Anthony Lynn call, which I gave you a list of 7 guys that I thought were going to be considered for this job. And on that list, one of the names, if not 2 of the names, let's see, I have the list right here in front of me. 2 of the people that I had on that list have been interviewed, but one of them, which was Anthony Lynn, was number 1 on my list. I said, he's the guy that I think ultimately they try to go after aggressively. Well, Anthony Lynn has been interviewed. That interview took place today. It has been completed. And so we'll talk about the offensive coordinator position tonight and what kind of progress has been made there. We'll talk about Cam Curl. You know, he's got an impending extension looming this offseason. And unlike last offseason where Daron Payne's name came up, but it was really more about getting, Terry McLaurin done. We want to get Daron done and we want to get Cam Curl done. The last 2 years, there's really only been one guy that we've been really fixated on getting done. 2 years ago was Jonathan Allen. Last year was Terry. You were like, yeah, if they get Daron done, cool, but you weren't really pressed. You were more concerned about Terry. This year, Daron is the focal point of the offseason and getting him done. But you're also like, hey, while you're at it, get Cam Curl done. Well, there was a little bit of a, dust up, that was started when his dad, Greg Curl, got on socials and he was just kidding, but we'll get into it. I was blindsided on Protect's show. I had no idea that Greg Curl had made a comment about what he thought his son was worth and this, that, and the third. And so I hadn't actually been able to make it have context for me or how I perceive it. And I've had a chance to kind of, look at everything, and people were making it seem like he was making a demand. He wasn't, but we'll get into that a little bit later on in the show. I want to start first with Ron Rivera because there was a picture circulating on socials, and really the junkies started this whole foolishness. All right, the junkies posted a picture of Ron Rivera swinging a golf club. First of all, that picture is old. I don't know if you're aware of this. That picture is from May of 2022, so May of last year in the offseason. First of all, Ron Rivera and his wife are avid golfers. His wife is actually better than him. He's told us these things many times, but they are avid golfers. They enjoy golfing in their spare time. This is what they like to do. This is not Ron's first pro-am, okay, where you got celebrities playing with professionals. He does this almost every year, okay? That said, last year was a little bit later. It was in May when he did it, after the draft, when you really truly have free time as a coach. A little bit sooner this year. Obviously, season is just over, and he's already jumping into one. And the Junkies posted a picture that was not present day. It was from last year, but nonetheless, he is going to be participating this weekend in a golf tournament, which coincides with Senior Bowl week. And obviously, they're still conducting interviews for a vacant offensive coordinator position. So the Junkies put the picture on Twitter in particular. I don't know if they put it on IG, but on socials. And they said, does this offend you? Does this make you feel some type of way that your coach in the middle of Senior Bowl week and also in the middle of a offensive coordinator search is about to play in a golf tournament? Does that, does that make you feel like he doesn't give a damn about the job, essentially, is what they were trying to insinuate. And Chris Russell was one of those people that jumped on and had an opinion. I rarely agree with Chris Russell, and I didn't in this situation. He was like, the optics of this is bad. From an optics perspective, yeah, it's not the best look, but guess what? I don't give a shit. I personally, you may be offended by it. You may not like the fact that the picture was out there circulating. Again, it's not a present day picture. That picture wasn't taken of Ron swinging that golf club on Tuesday when it was posted. That's a picture from May of 2022. Okay. However, Ron will be swinging a golf club this weekend. As a matter of fact, he probably started today, and it'll run through the entire weekend. But that said, is the timing of this great? No, it's not. It's not ideal. But guess what? The season is over. Technically speaking. Until the Super Bowl happens, Senior Bowl is happening. The people that need to be at the Senior Bowl are at the Senior Bowl, okay? Keep this in mind. The people that need to be at the Senior Bowl are at the Senior Bowl. Ron does not need to be there. He wasn't there last year. He doesn't need to be there this year. As a matter of fact, I'd probably prefer him not to be there, okay? Because the last time Ron watched film on a player, we ended up with Carson Wentz. You remember that? I watched the film. Well, I don't need him getting anywhere near these prospects, okay? Not right now, at least, okay? Last time he watched film, we ended up with Carson Wentz. So let the professionals handle what they've been working on all year long. Let the scouts, let your GMs, let them go out there and do what they are paid to do, which is find out what these kids are made of in person, okay? We've watched tape. They've talked to people who have been watching these guys, these area scouts. Now you actually get to lay hands on these kids, talk to them, kind of get a feel for whether they love football, how much does it mean to them, how smart are they, that kind of stuff, how athletically gifted, how big is this kid actually in person, all that stuff. They get to now, be hands-on with these players. Specifically, Marty Hurney. I'm not a Martin Mayhew guy. Marty Hurney, I will ride with. I think he gets it. I think he is a very shrewd talent evaluator. And so I'm glad he's there, and I'm hoping he's taking vigorous notes and he comes back and is able to find us, 7 to 8 guys that ultimately will be added to this team via the draft. And looking forward to seeing what I heard. I don't know if you guys saw this, but I think this was via Nikki Javala, and she may have gotten it from someone else, or maybe she's there in person. But she said that Marty Hurney in particular has spent a lot of time this week hovering over the offensive lineman, which means that we're going to take an offensive lineman relatively early in this draft. May not be in the first round, okay? Everyone's mocking us a corner. It could be an offensive lineman in the first round at 16. That is a very definite possibility, okay? Let that be known. However, if it's not the first round, it's probably going to be the second round. And I don't think we're just drafting one guy. we are probably drafting multiple offensive linemen. I would go on record right now as to say you're going to get an early day 1 or 2 prospect, so first, second, or third round, and then you're going to get a late round guy, probably on the interior, more likely than not a center in the later rounds that they plan. And both of these guys are probably players that they plan to give an opportunity to start. The one that they draft in the first 2 days of the draft, he's definitely going to be penciled in as a starter. If he comes in, stays healthy, handles his business, and shows that the NFL isn't that big of a jump for him, and he's not overwhelmed by the level of competition, he'll probably be a day 1 starter, whether it's a tackle or a guard. The center is going to be a later round draft pick. He's going to have to earn it. All right, they'll probably bring in a veteran to push him. But if they don't keep Chase Roullier, and we've talked about him being a guy that I feel like should be a restructure candidate, but there are a lot of people that think he'll be just flat out cut, and that's a realistic possibility. You heard how disappointed they were with the state of the center position and how we've dealt with both of our centers, starter and backup. Both Chase Roullier and Tyler Larson, each of the last 2 years, haven't finished the season. They're disappointed because that hurt us. Nick Martin was dribbling back snaps. You know, Wes Schweitzer was dribbling back snaps, having Carson Wentz have to bend down and grab snaps. It wasn't pretty. All right, so I think they're going to do something at center in particular. And normally when you get a center, you want a guy that can play all 3 interior positions: guard, and center. So they're going to probably draft an interior guy that can play center, and they're probably going to draft a tackle as well earlier in the draft, because again, I think they're going to look at Sam Cosmi as one of the answers at guard. I think you're going to see all 3 interior positions flip this offseason. So Nikki Javala said that Marty Hurney is paying special attention to the offensive line. That's music to my ears, because we definitely need to do some work along that offensive line, no matter who the quarterback is, whether it's Sam Howell or we bring in some veterans. Speaking of which, back to Ron being at this golf tournament, another reason that he may be there. First of all, Ron loves golf. So he's there because he wants to golf. He wants to have fun. He wants to have a release after a long season. These guys are not robots. I've already tried to explain this to you. Players, coaches alike, they have lives too outside of football. All right. Season's over. Once the Super Bowl is done, that's when you really start to turn the page. Okay. For the evaluators, their season is really starting to heat up. Ron is not an evaluator. He's only going to come in at the final stage of this process, when everyone's done all their work and they're ready to turn in that book report that they've written, that it's taken them all year to manifest. All right. Once they finish that book report and they're ready to turn it in, that's when Ron comes into the fold. And he starts reading these book reports, and he starts trying to figure out which of these guys fit the team, right? But his job right now is to find this offensive coordinator. Then you start turning your attention to trying to take care of guys on the roster that need to be brought back. Then your attention turns out to what other free agents from other teams are out there that we feel like can help this team. So then you turn your attention to that. And then, only then, after you've done all of that, do you start turning your attention to the draft if you're Ron Rivera. So he's allowed to have time to himself right now. All right. Would I like him to pick an offensive coordinator first? Yeah, that'd be ideal, but he's still waiting on Eric Bieniemy, right? So if you're still waiting on a guy and he's in the Super Bowl and you're not going to be able to get to him, well, I might as well play some golf while I'm waiting. Speaking of which, Aaron Rodgers is at this Pro-Am tournament as well. He's playing golf. Don't think for 1 second Ron isn't going to go over there, politic with Aaron a little bit, talk to Aaron, kind of gauge where he is, see what Aaron's talking about. Aaron won't be in Green Bay. I'm all but assured. I've already gone on the record on my podcast as saying Aaron Rodgers will be traded this offseason. Okay. Each of the last 2 offseasons, we've had a major quarterback be traded. All right. A potential future Hall of Fame quarterback traded. All right. Each of the last 3 years, we've had future Hall of Fame quarterbacks move teams. Brady wasn't traded. He was a free agent, and he went to Tampa in 2020. Stafford was traded. Winning that Super Bowl probably makes him a Hall of Fame quarterback when it's all said and done. He's still got some more chapters at the back end of his book to write, but I think he's going to be a Hall of Fame quarterback with that Super Bowl ring. And then last year, Russell Wilson was traded to the Denver Broncos. We're going to see another blockbuster trade with a quarterback. And I don't know if the Jets will be foolish enough to trade for Derek Carr, but Derek Carr, I think, is going to end up with the Jets. We're playing this game of musical chairs with these quarterbacks, and I think I have an idea about where some of these quarterbacks are going to end up. I think Derek Carr is going to end up with the Jets. And I think Aaron Rodgers right now is being courted. I think Ron Rivera is putting his bid in right now. I don't think Ron Rivera's attempt, though, and his pitch is going to be stronger than that of Davante Adams in Las Vegas. Rodgers is very loyal. You know how he is about guys that he gets down with. We saw it with Randall Cobb. Davante Adams is already putting in his bid to have Aaron come to Vegas. They clearly need a quarterback. Are they high enough in the draft to get a guy? Maybe. But are they going to do that? Probably not. And so are they going to roll with Jarrett Stidham? Probably not. So now the question begs, what are you going to do at quarterback if you're the Las Vegas Raiders? The answer may be sitting right in front of our face. You got Davante Adams. Why did Davante Adams not want to leave after his best friend? Part of the reason he came to Vegas was to play with his former college teammate and best friend, Derek Carr. Well, he's no longer in Vegas. So what the hell does Davante Adams want to stick around for when they don't even have a quarterback? Unless he's about to be reunited. Reunited, and it feels so good. Unless he's about to be reunited with his buddy, his longtime quarterback in Green Bay, Aaron Rodgers. Makes a ton of sense to me. Rodgers will be closer to home. He's from that California area. And so he'd much rather be closer to the Bay Area than, on the East Coast. The Packers have already kind of threw out innuendos that said, hey, if we trade Rodgers, probably not going to be in the NFC. Probably not going to be in the NFC, okay? Probably going to be in the AFC. Rid this conference of another top-tier quarterback. Brady's gone, and if you send Rodgers packing, then the floodgates, literally are open. Even though Brady and Rodgers weren't themselves this year, it's really wide open in the NFC. Could you imagine if Aaron Rodgers goes to the Las Vegas Raiders and Derek Carr goes to the Jets? There will be nothing in the NFC, literally nothing, stopping a team from coming out of nowhere, off the pace, if they could get consistent play out of the quarterback position, solid defense, and they can score enough points. There's nothing stopping a team from being Cincinnati, 2 years ago. Or if you want to go back even further in the archives, the Arizona Cardinals of 2009, 2010, somewhere in there, when they had that magical run to the Super Bowl with Kurt Warner and Larry Fitzgerald and Anquan Bolden and company. What's stopping someone from having one of those meteoric rises to the Super Bowl? What's stopping somebody from having the greatest show on turf happen like it did with Warner back with the Rams in 99? What's stopping somebody from having this Tom Brady-like, ascension to the Super Bowl in 2001? What's stopping somebody in the NFC? Because I think the NFC East as a conference is going to take a step back. They're not playing Jacksonville, Indianapolis, Tennessee, and Houston next year. They're not playing Chicago and Detroit, Minnesota, and Green Bay next year. Their schedule is much tougher. They're playing real football teams that will give them a run for their money. So I think the NFC East is going to take a massive step back. That includes the Eagles, who are in the Super Bowl. They're going to lose some of their players. They got a hell of a team this year. A lot of those guys are on one-year deals. They're going to re-sign some of them, but some of those guys are going to be gone. All right? Jason Kelsey may retire. They're not going to be the same team next year that they are this year. They better win the Super Bowl this year because they may not get another shot at it for a while. They could be back there next year for all we know. But it could easily be where they take a massive step back. We'll see. They're set up really nice with all the draft capital that they have and, some of the moves that they've made. They're set up to be in the driver's seat in the NFC for, the next 3 to 4 years, but we'll see if they're able to execute. But with that said, I think Ron Rivera is making his pitch this weekend to Aaron Rodgers about why he should come to Washington. A lot of you have already fixated on the idea of Sam Howell being a quarterback. And in an ideal world, that's what should take place. But what should happen and what ultimately will happen aren't usually the same thing, especially when it comes to this organization. The thing that makes the most sense usually isn't what actually transpires. Now, what makes sense to us as fans is that no one with this current regime have anything to do with selecting another quarterback, because we don't trust the longevity of this current staff, Rivera and Marty Herney and Martin Mayhew and company. We don't think that they're going to be around much longer than a year. So we don't want them involved in selecting a guy that may outlast them for up to 4 more years after they're gone. You don't want to go down the veteran quarterback route because we've done it 2 years in a row and it's been a disaster. But Ron's like, hey, that was my second strike. 3 strikes and I'm out. But I got 1 more strike left. And I may knock this one out of the park. Don't think for 1 second. I told you guys when we heard the report that Washington was rolling with Sam Howell, I said, please, it is lying season, everyone. Understand. Believe half of what you see, none of what you hear, even if it's spat by me, your man Louie T. Y'all know what it is this time of the year. Yep. They like Sam Howell a lot. They do not love Samuel Howell. Okay. They like him a lot. I like him a lot. But trust and believe if they can get Aaron Rodgers, they're going to do that before they go out. And Rodgers has already said he's willing to restructure his deal wherever he goes. He's already made mention of that. So I firmly believe Ron, part of the reason he's at this Pro-Am, he would have been there anyway. But another, added benefit of him being there is he's trying to woo Aaron Rodgers. Whether you want him or not, Ron wants him. Okay. Ron's trying to save his job. And I've already made the point of if you're trying to save your job, and this can be extrapolated at offensive coordinator as well. If you're trying to save your job, do you want the guy with less experience or more experience as an offensive coordinator? You want to take a chance when your job is hanging in the balance. Your job is dangling by the thinnest of threads, and it's hanging in the balance. Do you want to put your job security on the line with a guy that has never done it before or a guy that has experience doing it? Same can be said for quarterback. Jay Gruden said the same thing. When they forced him to take Dwayne Haskins in 2019, he was like, what the hell am I going to do with a rookie? I'm fighting for my job. I need a guy that can come in the first round and help me right now, which is why they doubled back and got Montez Sweat. Jay was like, I can't do shit with this young quarterback. I don't have time to develop a young quarterback. I'm trying to save my ass. Ron's situation isn't quite the same because Sam isn't a rookie. He's a second-year guy. But if you go and get a new offensive coordinator, it's not like Sam's a rookie, but it's sort of like he's a rookie because he's got to learn a new playbook, new language, new offense. If you roll with Ken Zampese, then he doesn't have to learn new terminology, new language. It's the same offense, just going to be executed differently. So there's some decisions to make. Zampese has been an offensive coordinator before, just briefly though, hasn't had a ton of experience, but I think Ron is going to go with a guy with experience. So the whole Thomas Brown and some of these guys that are intriguing, Charles London, these guys that have never called plays before in the NFL, I don't think those guys are being considered. Okay. They interviewed those guys. They probably walked away saying, hey, that's a sharp guy. I think he'll make a fine offensive coordinator one day, just not right now and not for me. I'm fighting for my life. I need a guy that's done it before, which is why you have to factor in a guy that probably wouldn't be the sexiest hire. And I've already talked about him. All right. But understand that you got to factor in, and I've narrowed the pool down to roughly 4 guys that I think I've done. I feel confident in these 4 guys. All right. Pat Shermer to me is the longest shot. I don't think he's going to get the job, but do not rule him out. I put him at 7%. Coming in at 3rd is Ken Zampese. I think Ken Zampese has about roughly a 20% chance of getting this job. And really, that I've shrunk it to 4 candidates, let's call it 25%. He's got a 1 in 4 shot because I've shrunk the pool down to 4 guys that I think they're targeting at this point. So I think Ken Zampese has a 25% chance at becoming the next offensive coordinator here. Next up is Anthony Lynn. I think Anthony Lynn is roughly at 42% chance of being the next offensive coordinator here. And I think Eric Bieniemy is slightly above him at 44%. I think the guy that they ultimately want is Eric Bieniemy. And what I'm hearing is that 2 teams in particular, and it would be fitting that it would be the 2 I-95 teams that can't stand each other, that will be more likely than not competing for Eric Bieniemy's services. Baltimore and Washington. Ian Rappaport said on Pat McAfee's show today that really the 2 teams that stand out as serious contenders for offensive coordinator Eric Bieniemy are Baltimore and Washington. Now, I could do the thing that's easiest to do. That's the low-hanging fruit. And it's not false, because it's low-hanging fruit doesn't mean it isn't actually true. It just means that's the easy thing to do. I could do would you rather go coach Lamar Jackson in Baltimore, where there's a history of success, which is probably a pipeline to you becoming a head coach? Or would you rather go to Washington, where you could be one and done with Ron Rivera getting fired by a new owner and a quarterback situation that is unstable, and at the best, you may end up with Aaron Rodgers. At worst, you may end up with Sam Howell, and you're not really sure what you're going to get out of him. Now, from a weapon standpoint, Washington probably has more, even though Rashad Bateman looked damn good before he got injured, and we know what the tight end situation in Baltimore is, specifically with Mark Andrews. They're not void of talent. They just don't have the trio of receivers that we have. Okay. That said, if I'm Eric Bieniemy, which one would I choose? I'm not going to do that, though. This is the angle that I want to approach it from. I'm intrigued because while on Protect Sports' show the other night, something was brought to my attention by Rico that I hadn't really thought about, but it makes so much sense. Because I kept saying, well, Eric Bieniemy isn't leaving Kansas City. Why would he do that? If he's not leaving directly for a head coaching job, then it's a comfy, cozy job. Just stay there. You've got security. Andy Reid isn't going anywhere. You're going to continue to win. Mahomes is your quarterback. You'll get a job eventually. However, I forgot about this, and when Rico brought it up, it's like a light bulb went off in my head. He said, don't forget, Eric Bieniemy was supposed to get a job last year, and the Chiefs thought he was getting a job. They let his contract run out because they assumed someone would hire him. When he didn't get a job for yet another coaching cycle, Andy felt bad and gave him a 1-year deal and was like, bro, I'm going to give you one more opportunity to get a job or else I got to move on. I got other guys that are here that are waiting for your position. Like, this is a factory, bro. Okay. We don't keep coordinators here for 6-7 years at a time. This is a factory. 2-3 years max. We get you a job and we get the next guy in the seat. Okay. So Matt Nagy was that guy, got a job, got fired, back in Kansas City, and Matt Nagy's sitting there waiting for his job as offensive coordinator back so he can try to reinvent himself, repackage himself, and sell it to a team that I belong being a head coach again. Or maybe it's Greg Lewis, the longtime wide receiver coach that Andy's ready to boost up into that offensive coordinator role to get him out of Kansas City. He's got a factory going. So Andy's like, bro, you got to go. You're holding up a spot that somebody could be utilizing to advance their career. He only signed a 1-year deal. His contract is up. The Chiefs don't intend on bringing him back. He has to find work somewhere else. So it's all making sense now. Why would Eric Bieniemy want to leave? He's being pushed out the damn door. Bro, you got to go. So now it's not a matter of if Eric Bieniemy is leaving Kansas City. His ass is leaving. Now it's, where are you going to go? Are you going to Tennessee? Are you going to Baltimore? Are you going to Washington? You got to go somewhere. Somebody's going to hire him. I can assure you this will not be like head coach where he can't find a gig. Someone is going to give Eric Bieniemy some good money to be their offensive coordinator. The question isn't if, it's who and when. Will it be us? I think they're going to have an interview lined up with him, just like Baltimore will, just like Tennessee, if they're still interested, will. He'll be a busy man. As soon as the Chiefs Super Bowl, title run is over, whether they win the game or lose it, he's going to be in demand as an offensive coordinator. And it's really good for his brand because this is his opportunity to stand on his own two, take the things he's learned from Andy Reid, incorporate them elsewhere, and show everyone that, hey, I wasn't just a token offensive coordinator, because that's what everybody perceives him to be right now. I'm guilty of that. He's a token offensive coordinator. He's not in total control. He's going to get total autonomy wherever he goes. And I think Ron Rivera is very, very intrigued with Eric Bieniemy because they see a lot of the same, opportunities that the Chiefs have with this offense, with the weapons that we have. And I think that is very intriguing to Ron. Because I told you, Ron may be talking at 2-to-1 ratio run shit, but Ron, we don't have an identity. I told you one of the biggest problems, one of the biggest mistakes. I gave you 3 things in particular. Quarterback supersedes everything else. But, another big problem here is that we've never established an identity. Who are we? What do we want to accomplish on a weekly basis? Early in the season, we were throwing this shit 40, 45 times a game with Wentz. Then the offensive line fell apart. Then you were scared to throw it, so you're throwing a bunch of bubble screens and shit to get a ball out of Carson Wentz's hands quickly because he was scared to death. Then he gets injured. Heineke comes in. We start running the hell out of the football, but Heineke's also still throwing it, but he's not throwing this shit 40-something times like Wentz was. Now we've morphed into this run team again. Just like the year previous, we start to win games. It's not pretty, but it's getting the job done. But this shit is not sustainable. You can't win games 17-16. Can't win games consistently 20-17. Okay? 20 points isn't going to win you a bunch of games in this league. It'll win you some. It will not win you enough to qualify for bonus football. And so Wentz comes back, and what do they start doing? Slinging the bitch 40 times again. We don't have an identity. So maybe, just maybe, you go get Eric Bieniemy, and he's able to help us establish one. Now, again, the ball will be in Eric Bieniemy's court. I think they will interview him, and they'll offer him the job. Whether he's like, I got another interview set up with Baltimore and Tennessee, I'll get back to you. Or is he like, this job really fits what I want to do? Terry McLaurin, Jahan Dotson, Curtis Samuel, Antonio. I really think being that Eric Bieniemy is coming from a running back's perspective, same thing with Anthony Lynn. The biggest winners, if the next offensive coordinator of this team is Anthony Lynn or Eric Bieniemy, I think the 2 biggest winners will be Brian Robinson and Antonio Gibson. If you ask me who the biggest winner will be, it'll be Antonio Gibson. Because, especially if Bieniemy ends up being the offensive coordinator, because I could see them using him in a Jerick McKinnon type of way, which is what we should be doing with him. We tried to do it with J.D. McKissic, but he's never healthy. And I feel like Antonio Gibson can do so much more. Like, the man ran a corner route against Jacksonville in week 1. We didn't run a corner route with him the rest of the season. I don't really know what the hell Scott Turner was doing, because shit worked in week 1 that we never got back to the remainder of the season. I mean, that shit was mind-boggling. We ran a diamond formation in week 1 against Jacksonville. We never went back to that shit. We ran Antonio Gibson out of the backfield as a running back running a corner route. We never went back to that shit. There were so many things. We ran the RPO in the red zone 2 weeks in a row. Scored touchdowns 2 weeks in a row. After the Detroit game, never went back to that shit. I mean, there are some things that just boggle the mind. But I'm glad he's gone. Imagine Eric Bieniemy getting his hands on some of these weapons that we have and what he'll be able to do. Anthony Lynn comes from another running back, mindset, and I think he would maximize the running back position here. May not bode well necessarily for the receivers. I think Bieniemy would be better served for those receivers, but if you get Anthony Lynn, I think the running game is going to be big, and the running backs catching the football, all that good stuff is going to be a big part of the offense. So I've narrowed it down to 4 candidates. Eric Bieniemy, to me, I think is at the top of their list. Anthony Lynn is second. If neither one of those guys work out, I think they settle in on Ken Zampese. I think they just say, you know what? It's better not to kind of, rock the boat. Couldn't get the guys that we ultimately wanted. We don't need to rock the boat. Let's just stick with Ken Zampese, kind of keep the continuity of the offensive scheme and what Howell is used to. And let's just see if we can't get him to be better than he was in his rookie season now that he's, another year comfortable in the scheme with a better play caller, we hope. And then I think Pat Shurmur is a distant 4th. I think I've heard the term uninspired hiring is what has been labeled on Pat Shurmur, which that to me isn't wrong. You hire him. I don't think a lot of people are going to be excited. It'll be the equivalent of when we hired at one point Jim Fossil to be our head coach. And as fans, I was a part of the fans that revolted against the hire, and Dan panicked and then ended up giving the job to Jim Zorn. And we deserve that. We got what we asked for. We deserve that. So in my mind, it's between those 4, and I think they really want Eric Bieniemy. So there's that. Cam Curl. Let's talk about Cam Curl for a second. He is interesting. Going into year 4, final year of his rookie contract, he's done nothing but prove that he is a legitimate top-tier safety in this league. His versatility has been, dare I say, irreplaceable in this defense. They've used him in a multitude of ways, and when he's not on the field, more so than any other player, and it's hard for me to say that because we really have never seen what this defense looks like without Daron Payne. Jonathan Allen doesn't miss games either. Really, neither does Montez Sweat, but we've gotten a glimpse of that back in 2021 towards the end of the season when his brother was killed and he had to deal with the broken jaw and all that stuff that really derailed the end of that season for him. The defense was just fine without him, right? I think those two in the middle would have a massive impact if they weren't there. But clearly, when Cam Curl is not in the lineup, this defense is almost like they can't function. I've gone through this already, but we'll do it again quickly. He misses the first 2 games of the season. You could argue that those were 2 of the worst defensive performances of the season. Yeah, Jacksonville only scored 22 points. They could have scored 40. Go back and watch that game. Watch how many missed opportunities. If we would have played Jacksonville that same way in week 12 or 14 or 16 when they had got their mojo, they would have hung 40 on our skulls. Lawrence wouldn't have been missing those easy passes. Travis Etienne wouldn't have been dropping touchdown passes. The field goal kicker probably wouldn't have been, missing kicks from close range. Like, they left a lot of points on the field. And so that was a terrible defensive performance, honestly. We got by because the offense dominated in the first 2 quarters and in the fourth quarter. The Detroit game, I don't have to explain to you how bad we were defensively in that game. That was a travesty. That was the worst defensive performance of the season. I don't know how much San Francisco scored. I think the 49ers scored 38, I think, which would be the highest point total that we gave up this season. Let's see. I don't know if I have my mobile device on me. I don't. And I don't know where I put it. But, here it is right here. I'm going to look up and see. I'm going to look and see what I just lost my train of thought that quick. What was I talking about? I was talking about Cam Kerr. I was talking about the defensive line. I was talking about, point total. That's right. I want to see how much we gave up in the 49ers game. I know we gave up 36 to the Lions. I know that for a fact. 37. I would venture to say that the Lions' performance was worse than the 49ers. Both of them were egregious. Both were big plays galore. Lions was worse because that game was very winnable, especially in the second half. And we had re-seized momentum and control of that game, and all the defense had to do was not be terrible, and they were. You had the big third down conversion to Amon-Ra St. Brown where nobody's around him. They bust coverage. You got the scramble around touchdown in that game to Amon-Ra St. Brown where William Jackson III dives sideways instead of jumping straight up, which is stupid. You've got the jet sweep when we just cut the lead to 1 score. And we're right back in the game, and the defense immediately gives up a 58-yard jet sweep to Amon-Ra St. Brown, and nobody's home on the outside, which you never see. We had to be one of the worst jet sweep defensive teams in the league. Like, we were hit or miss on that. Either we were stopping you for a no gain or a loss on 4th down on a jet sweep, or we were giving up 58 yards. Ray McLeod, remember, he had a jet sweep against us, and he ran for like a 60-yard touchdown. You're like, what the F? Nobody scores touchdowns on jet sweeps. What the hell is going on? That's us. We give up touchdowns and 58-yard gains and 60-yard gains on jet sweeps. We're the team that acts like we've never seen a jet sweep before. These shits happen when Cam Curl's not in the game. For whatever reason, I can't explain. But that Lions game was horrible. Obviously, I still throw up in my mouth thinking about that 3rd down and like 17 throw from Goff to DeAndre Swift, who falls down, gets up, dusts himself off, cuts back 3 times. Nobody touches him, and he walks in the end zone. You're like, what the just happened? Are you kidding me? He comes back in week 3, and although we give up 24 points in the second quarter, and he was a part of that, he missed a big tackle on Dallas Goedert on the tight end screen that opened the floodgates. And the defense was much better in that game. And then it proceeded to get better week after week after week until it got to the point where it was sustainable and they were carrying this football team. When we won, 5 out of 6, 6 out of 7, actually, the defense was the catalyst. So Curl was a big part of that. It's not a coincidence that he gets hurt late in the season, misses the 49ers game. We get toasted for our highest point total of the season, 37. We give up in that game. You got the Ray McLeod jet sweep for a touchdown. You got the George Kittle first touchdown where, he catches it and nobody's around him. You got the second George Kittle touchdown that if George Kittle doesn't catch it, Ray McLeod catches it for a touchdown. Somebody's going to catch the shit for a touchdown. Two guys in the same spot, wide ass open. Like, they started to do whatever the hell they wanted to do. Anyway, I said all of that, and in the Browns game, Deshaun Watson couldn't bust a grape before he saw us. He was turning the ball over like Dak Prescott. Every week, you could assure yourself that Deshaun Watson's going to turn the damn ball over. The question is, how many times and in what fashion? Is he going to have 2 fumbles this week? Is he going to have 2 fumbles and an interception? Is he going to have 2 interceptions and 1 fumble? Is he going to have 3 interceptions? That was the question. He comes to Washington and he throws 3 damn touchdown passes. Hadn't had more than 2 in any game. He comes to Washington and throws 3. And then the immediate following week goes right back to being the same Deshaun Watson that sucks ass. No Cam Curl. So, I said all that to say he's invaluable. Okay? Which prompted his dad, Greg Curl, to respond on social media to a post by the Washington Post, an article that was written that essentially said Washington needs to get a deal done with Cam Curl sooner rather than later. Don't wait and allow this guy to get into that final year of his deal and then, get closer to free agency. We're already there with Deron Payne. It's not a place you want to be because now the player really has you by the balls. Unless he's loyal to you and he really wants to be there, or you offer him a deal that he cannot refuse, he's just going to wait it out and see what his value is on the market, especially if he doesn't really want to be here, like i.e. Brandon Sheriff and Kirk Cousins. That said, his dad responded to the article and he said 80 mil, essentially. 80 mil to get the deal done. He never really threw out like years because he wasn't serious. He was just being facetious. He was just, throwing that out there saying, my son's valuable and he's worth a lot. When I first heard about it on Protect's show, I thought he was serious because how it was presented to me was that, he was, essentially making a demand like, hey, my son wants a, 4-year, $80 million deal. Like, that's how it was presented to me. And I was like, whoa, wait a minute. 20 mil? I get it. There's inflation. The cap has gone up to 224. It was 223, somewhere in there. It was 208 last year. So there's more money to be spent. I get all of that. And so by virtue of that, deals are going to be more than they were a year ago or the year before that. However, Cam Curl, while he's a really good player, he doesn't create turnovers. He has not been a turnover machine. The guys that command top dollar in this league are the guys that are taking the football away. And so when I heard 80 million over 4, I'm like, I don't know about that. 80 over 5 is different. Because at the end of the day, it's not about the amount, the total, amount of the deal. That final number, that's for the agent. That's for aesthetics. Okay? Because most guys don't see the actual amount of their deal. Von Miller last offseason signed a 6-year, $121 million deal with the Buffalo Bills. He's not seeing $121 million from Buffalo. That deal was like 60 some odd million dollars guaranteed. That's the money he's going to see. Okay? It's a 3-year, $66 million deal or something like that. Okay. So the 80 really didn't bother me. It was, how many years are you talking about? Because what really matters is what are you being paid on average? The AVV, okay? Or the AAV, excuse me. What are you being paid on average? So let's take a look at that. Let's take a look at that. So I was reading an article on the SI Commanders affiliate. You know, the SI has a affiliate for each team in the league. And so the Commanders SI affiliate had a post here. They had written a story surrounding Cam Curl's, contract, pending contract extension this offseason. And, they mentioned his dad's comments, and he was kidding. Just so everybody knows. I went and looked at the tweet. It was harmless. Somebody else had tweeted, 4 over 64 should get the deal done. And he liked the tweet. Like, he's not demanding $80 million. So we can chill on that. But let's read this. I think this is important for everyone to kind of internalize this, do with what you want with this information. But I think this is important to know. When you approach a Cam Curl deal, this is something that I think needs to be taken into consideration. This little piece of information right here. Coupled with Monday's news regarding the salary cap increase in 2023, which I told you already is going up from $208 million in 2022 to roughly $223, $224 in 2023. So you're seeing an increase of $15 to $16 million in the cap. Curl's new contract should make him among the top 5 paid safeties in the NFL next season. Facts, right? Facts. He's going to be in that neighborhood. He's a damn good football player, right? Currently, Derwin James, Minkah Fitzpatrick, Jamal Adams, Harrison Smith, and Justin Simmons comprise of the top 5. So if you were to franchise tag a safety, they would be mashing those 5 contracts together, the average, and dividing it by 5, and that's what you would be paying him, which would put it somewhere in the $17.5 million range. Why do I say that? It says James has an average annual value. Remember the AAV, which is what I told you is the most important thing. When you're assessing a contract, don't pay attention to the final figure when they say, oh my God, he just signed for $120 million. That's not what you should be analyzing. How long is the deal? Okay. Because a 2-year, $120 million contract means he's getting paid $60 million a year. Whoa. If he signed a 7-year, $120 million deal, he's getting paid less than $20 million a year. So it doesn't really feel the same, right? So same money, $120 million, but the years spread it out and it makes it different. So Derwin James is getting a AAV of $19 million per. That's on the high end of this group. Okay, Derwin James was the last one to get paid. His deal is the highest, $19 mil per. While Simmons is at the low end. He got paid 2 years ago, so his is at the bottom of this group of 5 at 15.2. I surmise that Cam Curl is going to fall somewhere in between. He's not as good as Derwin James or Minkah Fitzpatrick, but he's in that Jamal Adams, Harrison Smith, Justin Simmons range. Adams takes the ball away a little bit more. He's a sack master. He does a lot more than Cam Curl does to affect the game in terms of sacks, turnovers, things of that nature. I think he's in this Harrison Smith, Justin Simmons range. So in my mind, he's probably $16 to $17 million per year. Not 18, not 19, not 20, 16 or 17, which is good money, which is what he deserves. And I'm pretty sure he would take that. So I just want you guys to understand where his dad was coming from. Nothing malicious. Wasn't looking to cause a stir. He was just kidding, but he does want you to know. And in joking, in jest, you can get a point across. You know, you hear people all the time say, man, I'm just kidding. They say some shit and then throw, I'm just kidding at the end. The shit it doesn't erase what they said. It just tries to take the edge off. Maybe you were a little offended. They throw just kidding at the end and now you calm down a little bit. They diffuse you. It doesn't change the fact that they said what they said. They were partly serious. What Greg Curl essentially was saying is, my son deserves to be paid. Right? Doesn't have to be 80 a year. I mean, 80 million overall, but my son deserves to be paid. His son's going to be paid. Whether it's 4 years, 64, which is 16 per, somewhere in that neighborhood, Cam Curl will be paid, and it will be that type of deal, and he deserves it. So we'll see what happens with Cam Curl and his impending free agency. So I think I covered all my bases on the things that I really wanted to get to tonight. And now I think we should get to the comment section, see what you guys have to say before we get out of here. Tony P56, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Tony P writes, Lou, did you call the post office or go get that hat? I forgot, bro. I'm not going to even lie to you. I am going to go tomorrow. I promise you. I'm going to go tomorrow and go and pick it up. I totally blanked and spaced on that, man. I'm so sorry. I will take care of it. And you'll know I got it because if I got it, I'm going to wear it. So, sorry about that. I truly do apologize. I'm going to get my P.O. box back, and then you won't have to worry because then I'll have a reason to go to the post office and check it more often. I just haven't had a reason to go to the post office. So I truly do apologize for that, though. You should see it next week. All right. I'll just tell you that right now. Thank you for the super chat. And thank you for the great blessing. You blessed me with one last year that was dope. And I'm assuming this one is just as dope. So I can't wait to see it. So thank you for that, Tony P56. All right. Video channel. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Video channel writes, sup, Lou? Sup, video channel? Scouts been doing their job all season. Let them work. Ron smoking cigars on the Senior Bowl PGA Tour. Like I said, these guys have been knee-deep in their evaluations of these prospects all season long. They'll continue that process after the Senior Bowl, after the Combine. They'll continue to put in the work, these pro days, and then they'll make their final assessments, turn that stuff into Ron, and then they'll really start to set their board, right? Ron, as I mentioned, he's not going to come in play in this process until they get to the very end. He'll start watching film on these guys periodically as he's, doing free agency stuff, but he's really singularly focused. As a coach, you need to go one thing at a time. You don't want to overwhelm yourself with a million different things unless you want to be a part of that. Ron is not a talent evaluator at the collegiate level. Save that for the guys who are. What Ron can come in and do is he can either validate what you're saying to him, like, hey, I think this kid would fit what we want to do very well, which we still don't even know what the hell that even means here in Washington. But, maybe he says, hey, this kid has all the traits we're looking for on the offensive line. Big, athletic, heavy hands, gets out of his stance quickly, not grabby, good hand placement. And then he turns on the tape, Ron watches him and says, I agree with you. I think this is the kind of kid that, John Matsko can get his hands on and really turn him into an all, pro type player. That's what Ron does at the end of the process. Is he validates or he says, nah, I'm not really interested in this dude. So Ron is doing what, he needs to do, which is decompress right now. Been a long season. Give me a second. Told you these kids are kicking ass, man. Let me blow my nose real quick. Hopefully I don't have any boogers after this. That's been the biggest challenge. You blow your nose, and then you have 18 boogers in your nose after you blow your nose. Sick of this shit already. I don't want y'all hearing me blow my nose. All right, I'm back like cook crack. Hopefully I don't have any boogers because y'all gonna talk about me like a dog. I know y'all are, but I'm just gonna cross my fingers and hope that I did a good job. So I think Ron is where he needs to be. I want him level-headed, I want him to decompress, and I want him to attack the offseason with vigor. Okay. If this is what he needs to do, get away, play some golf. Players do it after the season. They get away, go to an exotic island, decompress and take a couple of weeks off, let their body heal, and then they get back at it and start practicing and start, working out and getting, keeping themselves in tremendous shape. It's no different with Ron or his coaching staff. The scouts, this is their time of the year. They worked all those months for this time of the year. So this is when they really got to lock in. King Josh, stand up. You are the newest member of the MOBB. So glad to have you on board. Everyone that's out there that's a part of the MOBB, you know what to do. Open your arms wide and welcome King Josh to the show. Look forward to chopping it up with you guys. And my guy, King Josh. Welcome to the squad, King Josh. And look forward to us having these, intimate sessions. Last year I did it with the mob and nobody showed up. It was only like 4 or 5 people that showed up. I'm going to try to be more intentional with it, get that information out there to you guys, and hopefully there'll be more of you so we can have some real discussions about the team, the draft, this, that, and the third. Hopefully I'm able to bring you guys some exclusive content. That's going to be my goal this year. Rob Yu, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you, Rob Yu. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB who writes, "What up, Lou? What's up, Rob Yu?" Says, Payne deserves to get paid, but would you roll with Ridgeway and Mathis if you could sign Tremaine Edmonds? No. I would prefer Payne over Tremaine Edmonds. Tremaine Edmonds is really good, but Payne impacts the game. He showed you last year just how valuable of an asset he can be. Payne at times was a game wrecker last season. There were games where he totally disrupted the opposition and blew things up. And while Tremaine Edmonds would be a welcome addition to this defense and a sight for sore eyes, if you're not going to use him as a pass rusher, which the Bills didn't, then he's not going to impact the game the way Daron Payne can. There's a reason why pass rushers and corners get paid more than anybody else on defense, because they impact the game more than any other position. The reason linebacker is so far behind the curve and safety's starting to get their weight up a bit. Linebacker, we just had the first linebacker hit 100 million. Like, those positions are starting to catch up. But understand that nobody impacts the game quite like a guy that can either erase a receiver or get to the quarterback altogether before he throws the football. And so I'd much rather have the guy that can stop the run and get to the quarterback and impact the game in a multitude of ways at the line of scrimmage than a guy that's off the line of scrimmage that may be able to impact the game but won't be able to do it in the manner that Daron Payne can. Because Ridgeway and Fedarian Mathis aren't Daron Payne. Neither one of them are. They both have specific roles on this team, and I think they could be really good at it, but they're not Jonathan Allen or Daron Payne. So I'd much rather have Daron Payne and go in a different direction at linebacker. Red Wings 01. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB who writes, "I could see Carr going to New York and Rodgers going to Las Vegas, but I don't know. Las Vegas can't draft in the first round to save their lives or even spell the word defense." I mean, all valid points. All valid points. However, your defense doesn't have to be as good if Aaron Rodgers has you out there scoring 32 points a game, right? You still got Max Crosby out there. I think they've done a good job with some of those guys in the secondary. So it's not, the cupboard isn't completely bare for the Raiders defensively, but they do need more help on that side of the football. But Chandler Jones, they signed last year, actually started to come on late in that season. You add a couple more pieces and maybe they're not that bad defensively. And maybe if you add more talent offensively, specifically at the quarterback position, and you get a healthy Darren Waller this upcoming season, you get a healthy Hunter Renfrow to go with Devontae Adams, that could be a very formidable offense and one that could make some noise. So I could see them going, look, we can sit here and talk about quarterback or defense and what they need to do on that side of the ball. We've already stated this. This is a known fact in the NFL. You don't have a quarterback, you don't have a chance. So, as far as I'm concerned, they got to figure that out first. So, whether it's Rodgers or drafting a guy in the first round, and they, like you said, they can't draft. Now, you're putting their failures in the first round on the new GM, which isn't fair. That was the doing of Michael Mayock and John Gruden, who are no longer there. So let's see how this new GM does in the first round. Rob, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. My guy Rob writes, cornerback in the first and left tackle in the second. I mean, I think every mock draft that I've seen has us taking a corner for the most part in the first round. And any mock draft that I've seen beyond the first round has us taking an offensive lineman. Not necessarily a tackle, but an offensive lineman in the second round. Again, I don't like mock drafts this time of the year because we haven't yet seen what free agency will bring this football team. We have no idea what they're going to do. I mean, essentially, they could let Wes Schweitzer walk. They could get rid of Chase Roullier. They could, cut Andrew Norwell, and they could not re-sign Trey Turner. And all of a sudden, you're looking around and not re-sign Tyler Larson, who's also a free agent. And you can look around and say, bro, we have nobody on the interior of the offensive line unless you're starting Chris Paul and Sam Cosmi. You got nothing on the interior. So maybe that's where you go first. Because theoretically speaking, if you do nothing at tackle this offseason, at a bare minimum, you're coming back with Cornelius Lucas and Charles Leno Jr. Bare minimum. You got starting tackles. And if you wanted to insert Sam Cosmi back out at tackle, you got tackles. You may not love them, but they're serviceable starters. Okay? So I don't think you're going to see a situation where we can honestly assess what they're going to do until we see what they do in free agency. And that also entails what they do with their own guys that are free agents, Wes Schweitzer and Tyler Larson. And do they decide to try to restructure a Chase Roullier, or do they just outright cut him and pick up the cap savings? Do they try to get rid of Cornelius Lucas, which I don't see them doing? His cap savings isn't significant enough to me. It's like $2.1 million. You don't need to cut him for $2.1 million when he's one of the better swing tackles in football. But again, we'll see what they do. I think right now, and I gave you a list. I don't know if I still have that list. I don't think I got it anymore. Maybe I do. Give me a second. I'm going to look and see if I can track it down. Yeah, I gave you a list already of what I think ultimately is going to happen. I said first round, and I gave you an outline of what these picks should look like. First round, corner, offensive line, an elite edge rusher. Because again, you got a decision to make on Montez Sweat and or Chase Young coming up. So if an elite edge rusher like Myles Murphy out of Clemson is sitting there, I wouldn't be opposed to them. Again, there's nothing wrong with taking a strength and making it stronger. Okay? Or an elite running back. I know that wouldn't be a chic pick. I know that 16 may be too high for a running back when you already got Gibson and Brian Robinson on the roster. But I've already said that Bijan Robinson or a Jameer, and really it would be more like Jahmyr Gibbs, because I think Brian Robinson is your bell cow. So you don't need another Robinson, even though Bijan would be an upgrade over Brian Robinson. Jahmyr Gibbs out of Alabama is Alvin Kamara on steroids. And I would be interested in that. I think he will immediately come in and have a massive impact in the NFL. So that's the first round. Second round, offensive line, corner, edge, linebacker. to me, are your options in the second. So I think any combination of corner and offensive line in the first 3 rounds make a ton of sense. You don't get a corner in the first round, second round. You don't get a corner in the first or second round, third round. You don't get an offensive lineman in the first round, second round. You don't get an offensive lineman in the first or second round, third round. Like you, in the first 2 days of the draft, we should have already acquired a corner and an offensive lineman of some sort. I will be disappointed. Now, again, free agency could alter that because we could go and sign a free agent nickel. I haven't seen any free agent nickels that moved the needle for me. Not like how I was fixated on Mike Hilton 2 years ago. I don't see a guy available that I'm like, yo, we got to go get him. Okay. I don't see that on the market. So I don't anticipate them being aggressive for an outside corner in free agency where you can just draft a guy and not spend the kind of money that it takes to get an outside corner in this league. So, I mean, James Bradbury will be available again. Ron had a shot at him 2 years ago and didn't do it, or 3 years ago. I don't think he's going to do it now. He's a much older corner now. I don't see the value being there anymore, but I digress. I just anticipate them going offensive line no matter what. Whether they get 1 or 2 guys in free agency, they're still going to draft one. Corner is the only one where if they pick up somebody in free agency, it could alter the way that they attack that position in the draft. You get somebody in free agency that you really like, and that may cause you to take a look at the cornerback position later in the draft and not make it an immediate need. You don't draft or you don't get anybody in free agency at corner, then it's an immediate need early in this draft. So, again, we'll see what happens. Jason Fios, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. My guy Jason writes, what's up, Lou? What's up, Jason? Says, don't know if anyone brought it up, but what if Andy told Eric that Washington might be his best opportunity? He would like you to have as, okay, so that's who would you like? Who would you like to have as OC? Andy isn't telling him where to go. Andy's just telling him, you got to go. Okay. Now, if Bieniemy asked him his opinion, you know, Andy probably would be candid with him like, hey, if Daniel Snyder sells, yeah, Washington has some talent. That's a really good destination. But if Daniel Snyder's there, I wouldn't advise you to go there. He can tell him that. But Andy, I don't think Andy's telling him where to go. I think Andy's just telling him, you got to go. So, who would I like? Who would I prefer? Honestly, I told you I would prefer the young, innovative, and I shouldn't say innovative, just young and unknown commodity. Like, I'm swinging for the fences here, right? So, with guys that already have a track record, and Bieniemy's a little interesting because we really don't know who he is as a coordinator because he's never had his own show before. All right. Anthony Lynn has had his own show as a head coach, and he's been an offensive coordinator in this league. Even if it's been briefly, he still had that title. We can go off of what we've seen him do in interim situations when he's had the opportunity and kind of see what he would be like, right? We know what Ken Zampese is. We've seen that, you know, with his time, excuse me, in Cincinnati with Andy Dalton. So we can kind of extrapolate what we would be getting out of him. I wanted to go with the unknown commodity, the guy that you don't really know what you're getting, like Thomas Brown. His energy is infectious. I was looking for one of those dudes that would be on the sideline. You know, somebody breaks a big run and he's running down the sideline. Like, I'm dying for some of that energy on our sideline. We don't have enough of that. You know, all we got is Ron standing with his arms folded, and then Ron with a golf clap. When somebody, I mean, and Ron's old as hell. I mean, he ain't Pete Carroll. You know, Pete's like 89 years old, oldest coach in the league, and you can't tell because Pete's still lively, running up and down like he's coaching college kids. That's not Ron. That's not his personality. That's not in his DNA. And that's fine. But what I'm looking for is that energetic guy. You know, I so much enjoy watching a pick six or a guy get a sack and D'Amico Ryans is the first guy to meet him off the field, chest bumping. You know, Robert Saleh, a guy picks a pass off and Robert Saleh is running with him down the sideline. You know what I'm saying? The referee's got to tell Sean McVay, get back in your coach's box. Because Baker Mayfield just engineered this crazy touchdown drive and he just got there 2 days ago. And Sean McVay's one of the first dudes down in the end zone to congratulate him. I want some of that shit. I want some of that young man energy. You know what I'm saying? On the sideline. I would like Thomas Brown. He's not going to be here. Okay. That's not what they're looking. I already told you Ron wants someone with experience. Someone that he feels like he can trust to help save his job. Thomas Brown is not that man. Not in Ron's eyes, at least. He's going to go with someone with experience. So, and that may be Eric Bieniemy. And Bieniemy may not have that energy, but if he's coaching it up, I don't give a shit. You know, running down the sidelines or not. If he's scheming it up and we look like Kansas City East, shit. Hell yeah. Hell yes. My first choice is Thomas Brown. My second choice is Eric Bieniemy. That's how I want it to go. And then anybody after that it's whatever. You know, Pat Shurmur, Anthony Lynn, it's whatever. You get one of those dudes, it's whatever. Lynn would probably be my third choice, but it's whatever. But the first two I'm really intrigued by because we really don't know what Eric Bieniemy is going to do. Let's see. Christopher McLaughlin. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. My guy, Chris, writes, hey, Lou, hope all is well with you and the family. Likewise, Chris. Likewise. Appreciate that. Do you consider Cam Curl a top 5 safety and why? If so, he is going to cost us close to $15 million. He's going to exceed $15 million. I just explained that. And I know you probably super chatted that before I got into the specifics of Cam Curl and what his next deal will look like. I'm thinking more along the lines of 4 years, $64 million. That's $16 million a year. That to me, is that 16? I think that's 16, if my math serves me correct. Or is that 14? Yeah, 16. That sounds about right. Somewhere in that neighborhood. Maybe 4 years, $65 million. It'd be, you know, roughly 16.2 million or something like that. That's along the lines of where he'll be. And I think that's where he belongs. Is he a top 5 safety? I don't know if top 5 is where I would put him. I gave you the top 5 highest paid. That doesn't mean those 5 guys are the top 5 at the position currently. Like Harrison Smith isn't a top 5 safety in the league anymore, but he's paid as one. Just because you're a top 5 paid, all that means is you were one of the more recent ones to get paid. I've already told you this. The next guy is the highest guy, right? He won't be the highest, but he'll be in that conversation. But Minka Fitzpatrick is better than him. Healthy Jamal Adams is better than him, even though I don't love Jamal Adams in coverage. I think he's a liability in coverage. That's not to say that Cam Curl isn't, but I think he's a better guy in coverage than Jamal Adams. Adams is more impactful on the game because he creates turnovers, picks, sacks, fumbles, things of that nature. Cam Curl isn't doing that, but they don't ask him to blitz that often either. But there's a knack. There's something to finding your way around the football, to have a nose and a knack to be around the ball. And Curl doesn't seem to necessarily have that. Not like Minka Fitzpatrick, not like Derwin James, not like the safety in Tennessee. I don't know why I'm blanking on his name right now. You know, not like Justin Simmons in Denver. If I sat here and thought Chauncey Gardner-Johnson is better than Cam Curl, like that's 5. I think that's 5 or 6 guys I just named, you know, right now. So no, he's not a top 5 safety. Will he be paid like one? Probably so. Probably so. And I don't mind that. I don't mind that. Because he's a damn good safety. All that means is if 4 or 5 more guys get paid, they'll knock him out of the top 5 in terms of highest paid safeties. So all it means is he was the most recent to get paid. That's all that means. Why do I think I don't think he's a top 5 safety, but what do I think he's a top 10 safety. I do think he's a top 10 safety. I think his instincts, I think what separates him from a lot of guys, which is why I'm frustrated that it doesn't translate into more turnovers, is he's such a smart football player. That's why they, as a rookie, could use him in the amount of ways that they did. That's why he became such an invaluable chess piece. Because intellectually, as a football player, he gets it. So you can play him. I remember that Carolina Panthers game in 2021 very vividly, where we said, hey, Cam, we need you. The biggest play of the game, 4th down. We know they're going to Christian McCaffrey. He's going to have a 4-way go of it. He can go up the field. He can go in. He can go out. He can come back to the football. It's 4th and 2. We need you to cover Christian McCaffrey one-on-one. Can you do that for us? Christian McCaffrey runs an option route. At the stem of the route, Christian McCaffrey stutters and then breaks out. And Cam Curl goes right with him, tackles him 1 yard short of the 1st down, and we win the football game. I know y'all remember that play. That's the versatility he brings to the table. So he is fantastic. You can put him in a multitude of situations, and he'll usually come out the victor. What has surprised me is because his rookie season, he was around the football. Pick 6 against the 49ers. I think he had a forced fumble in his rookie season. He was around the ball. I don't think he's had a turnover forced in the last 2 seasons, 21 or 22. That is mind-boggling for someone with the skill set and the talents of a Cam Curl. And if you ask me why he's not in the top 5, that's why. He's not impacting the game at a level that some of the other safeties. Kevin Byard is that other safety's name that I was trying to think of that I couldn't. He's not impacting the game like a Kevin Byard, like a Minkah Fitzpatrick, like a Justin Simmons, like a Derwin James, like a Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. You make a mistake around those guys, it's a pick. It's a turnover. And that's not the case in Washington. You can make a mistake around Bobby McCain and Cam Curl, and you'll live to fight another day. You'll have another snap. I'd like to see him take that next step and start creating. Derek Forrest is a guy that is starting to morph into a player where if you make a mistake around him, you don't get another opportunity. That's why I think he's started to endear himself to Washington fans so quickly. It's because he's generating turnovers. Forced a fumble against Indianapolis. I think that was him. That might have been Cam Curl. I think it was Derek Forrest that forced the fumble. Cam Curl had the big hit at the goal line that stopped Michael Pittman Jr. from getting in the end zone. But, you know, the pick against the Eagles, the pick against the Texans, that's all. The pick against Jacksonville to secure the victory in week 1, all that was Derek Forrest. I think that's why we really are starting to latch on to him. Because when you start taking the rock away, you're now becoming a difference maker. And I think Cam Curl doesn't get the respect that he deserves, kind of flies under the radar because he's not creating those turnovers. But it doesn't make him less of a player. It just makes him less of an impact. It doesn't make him less of a talent in a player. He's just got less of an impact on the game. If that makes any sense. But you can create turnovers and not be as good as Cam Curl is. But those other safeties that I mentioned, those are really good football players too. They're not just turnover mavens, but they don't have the talent to back it up. They're just in the right place at the right time. No, he's a damn good football player. Let's see. Your breath hot, rather get shot than talk to you a lot. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Who writes, Lou, I've been watching some more Sam Howell film. I'm even more impressed with his growth. I know sample size is small, but his footwork, quickness, thumbs up. There's a lot to like with Sam Howell. I said this last year when he was coming out. He was very intriguing to me. I thought he was the wild card of last year's draft. Let me see if I have his my write-up from the draft last year of Sam Howell. Let me see if I can track that down and see what I wrote and what I projected him as in the draft, because I was shocked he was there in the 5th round. I didn't think he was he was my 4th rated quarterback last year in the draft. And my strengths were sneaky athleticism. I think we've seen that already. Arm talent, 3-level accuracy. He can process and progress, so he can go through his reads, figure out where the football goes. Throws a beautiful deep ball. That was one of my notes here for strengths. Extends plays as a playmaker. To throw it, to run, he can extend plays and make things happen. We saw that again against Dallas. Red zone dual threat. What did I say? Red zone dual threat was something I put in my notes as a strength. We saw that against Dallas. The quarterback keep on the read option that he scores the touchdown on, right? Experience. He was a 3-year starter at North Carolina, 37 career starts. That can't be understated. I always feel like I'm starting to feel more like this now than I ever have before after watching what Kenny Pickett did, Brock Purdy did, and now Sam Howell, even though it's a smaller sample size. Guys with collegiate experience of multiple years, 2 years or more, I think are better equipped to come into the league and have success than the guy that's had 1 year like Dwayne Haskins or Mitchell Trubisky. Those guys are set up to fail or at least struggle initially. Trey Lance is another one. We haven't seen anything from Trey Lance that separates him or identifies him as a legit NFL starting caliber quarterback in the starts that he's had. 1 year starter. It's going to take them a little bit longer. Toughness, and he had collegiate success. My weaknesses, size, his 2021 decline, which really could be traced back to no De'Ami Brown. The other one, Dez, I don't know why I'm forgetting. He went to the Bears. Those were 2,000-yard receivers. Michael Carter and Javonte Williams, 2,000-yard running backs. All of them left for the NFL after the 2020 season. And he had to essentially carry the load of the Carolina Tar Heels offense on his shoulders. Can be a bit antsy in the pocket when things get a little bit rocky. He was a little skittish. Didn't really see that in the game against Dallas, but I did see that in the preseason. You know, when things get a little bit tight around him, he can sometimes be a little bit skittish, antsy, run into some sacks. He did that against the Ravens in that second preseason game, or was that the third preseason game? It was Carolina first preseason game. Kansas City was the second in Baltimore. He did that against Baltimore where he ran into a couple of sacks against Baltimore. So he can get out of them like he did against Carolina, but he could also run himself into some. Well, overextend plays. That means you've extended the play. There's nothing there. You got two options. Either you tuck it and run, get 2 yards, live to fight another day, or you chuck it out of bounds. He's one of those guys that wants to keep trying to make something happen, like Carson Wentz. And when you do that, oftentimes you find yourself making a mistake. You don't see that defender just slightly out of your vision, waiting for you to make a mistake. You throw it, you think you got an open receiver, this guy cuts in front of it, picks it up. Played in a RPO-heavy offense. My projection for him was late first round, early second. So I was shocked. Washington had a second round grade on him. I know people that had, second and third round grades. I think he was more of a second round grade. So there's a lot to like with Sam Howell. I thought he was the wild card of last year's draft. When I broke him down, I said, of all these quarterbacks, he's the one that I'm not sure what's going to become of him, but I wouldn't be shocked if he turned out to be a Pro Bowl caliber quarterback. I don't know if there were many of those guys in last year's draft. Clearly the league spoke, but between him and Pickett, and Malik Willis had the talent and Matt Corral has the talent, but to me, Howell and Pickett were the two where I'm like, I could see those guys being, Pro Bowl quarterbacks. Starface, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Who writes, Sam for 2023, draft O-line first round, cornerback, linebacker in second. As a fan, I think that's what most of us want. Most of us would like to see Sam Howell in 2023. I'm not going to do the thing I did with Dwayne Haskins. I learned my lesson. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. You won't get me a second time. Won't be shame on me. I fell for the Dwayne Haskins hype, hook, line, and sinker. There was a much larger sample size with Dwayne. I wanted Dwayne to be good, though. When you spend a first-round pick, there's an investment there that doesn't exist necessarily when you spend a fifth-round pick on a guy. And so I wanted Dwayne to work out because he was a first-round pick. He was a brother. And I wanted to find a guy that we could call our own, So I was really excited about Dwayne, and the flashes that I had seen at the end of 19 gave me hope that we had gotten it right. Those hopes were quickly dashed and turned to despair, and we were right back where we started, all over again, going through the quarterback carousel, back in the quarterback wilderness. I'm going to take a wait-and-see approach with Sam, but I would like to see, similar to the way I felt with Taylor Heinicke after I think his situation is much more similar to that of Taylor Heinicke than it is Dwayne Haskins. Haskins started the final 7 games or so of that rookie season in 2019. It's more like Taylor Heinicke after the 2020 playoff game against Tampa Bay, where it was just one game, one start. But we saw enough in that one start that it was like, hey, I'd like to see more of that. Well, they were like, yeah, we think he's a backup, so we're going to try to go out here and get Matthew Stafford. And then they settled in on Ryan Fitzpatrick after they couldn't get him. And so I think it's the same premise. Not necessarily they feel like he's a backup, but they're like, yeah, he's cool. And if we don't have anybody, we don't mind starting him. But if we can get Aaron Rodgers, or we can get Jimmy Garoppolo, or we can get Derek Carr, we'll do that instead. So I do think he's a guy that is an afterthought right now. Like, they don't like the difference between Heinicke and Sam Howell, in specifically Heinicke after the 2021 start against Tampa Bay, is that they weren't comfortable with Heinicke as a starter under no circumstances. They felt like they knew, having had him in Carolina, having watched him in practice, knowing his limitations, arm talent, size, all of that stuff, they didn't view him as a starter in any capacity. Never have, and they never will. Right? Howell, they do see as a potential starter. They don't put limitations on him as to what he can do or who he can be in this league. They just, if they can find what they perceive to be better, or at least with more experience, they'll go that route instead. But they are fine with starting Howell if they have to, which wasn't the case with Heinicke. They weren't fine with him, which is why they went out and got Ryan Fitzpatrick. So that's the biggest difference. Most fans want to see Sam Howell get an opportunity. Your breath hot, rather get shot than talk to you a lot. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes, I was laughing. Went and watched the 91 game. Opposing defenses were thrown off by simple motions. The TV announcers mentioned how hard it was to defend. Man, go back and watch 91. And it's like you're in the prehistoric age of football. I mean, like you said, simple motions were tough. I mean, listen to Jack Del Rio when he talks about defending defense. He's like, man, when I played, 2 receivers to one side, that was total mind blow. Team goes twins. Oh my God. We got to change up everything because they got 2 receivers to one side of the field. I mean, it was definitely a different game. Everything was different. And I went back and watched some of those games. I went back, I think it was about maybe 6 months ago. I went back and I watched the 83 championship game against Dallas. That was the We Want Dallas game. And I was like, oh my God, this is some bad football. Like, it's so elementary. But in saying that, it was so good. Nothing about it was complex. It was easy. And it was simplified, but it was effective. Anyway, yeah. If you go back to 91, it'd feel like you were watching a game from the 60s with how things are going right now. Starface, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up, Starface, who writes, I'm intrigued with Anthony Richardson, though. Intriguing is the word. I saw a tweet today. I think it was a tweet. It might have been an article. I can't remember which is which, but it made me smile because, hold on a second. The assessment was spot on. It was a spot on. I'm back. All right. So somebody wrote, and again, I can't remember if this was a tweet or if it was an article, a heading to an article. I think it was a tweet. Somebody said, I just finished watching Anthony Richardson's film, and it was a magical disaster. Like, that is probably going to be the exact way I feel watching his tape. A magical disaster. I watched a lot of his games live. Again, the SEC runs the show in college football, and we get a lot of SEC ball around here in Virginia in particular. A lot of Florida, a lot of LSU, every Bama game just about. Tennessee was big last year, Georgia. We get all that stuff. So I watched a lot of Anthony Richardson. And there were games where he was super impressive. The very first game of the season against Utah, Utah was ranked very highly. He was phenomenal. Phenomenal. Against Kentucky, he was awful. Awful. The first throw of the game against LSU is like a 65-yard dime for a touchdown. But then, 2 possessions later, he throws an egregious pick. The athleticism, the arm talent, everything's there, the size. He checks a lot of boxes. I don't know if I'm willing to spend a first-round pick on a guy that I can't play in his rookie season. I don't think you can play Anthony Richardson in his rookie season. And we've evolved past the point where you sit first-round quarterbacks for an entire season. Theoretically, that sounds nice. Hey, not going to play this guy, going to put him in bubble wrap. First-round pick, he's going to learn behind this veteran. That sounds good. But eventually, you're like, hey, man, I got to get this guy in here. There's only so many mental reps you can take. Got a first-round quarterback. You really would like him starting week 1. But okay, fine. Week 2, 3, 4, that's usually as late as it goes. Justin Fields in Chicago, they started Andy Dalton. By week 3, Fields was in there. Week 3 or 4, he was in there. And I could go on and on with these guys that get drafted. Trey Lance is the only guy that they sat down, and he's much like Anthony Richardson. 1 real year of being a starter, super raw, not ready to start yet. But if you are willing to put in the work, there may be a huge payoff at the end. That's not where we are in our process. We're not looking for a project that's going to take you 2 to 3 years to develop. We're looking for a guy that can come in and help right now. You draft him, he starts week 1. That's what we're after. That is not Anthony Richardson. Leave that for another team that has a veteran that they feel good about, that'll allow them to continue to play competent football while he learns. I'm not interested in him. But there may be a team or two that will love his upside. I guarantee you, when it's all said and done, the GMs around the league will be all over the map on this kid. You'll have 10 to 12 teams that swear by Anthony Richardson. They'd take him in the first round if they get an opportunity. If they were in a situation where they needed a quarterback, they may already have one, but if they didn't have one and they needed one, they'd take him in the first round. Then you're going to probably have another 14 to 16 GMs that are like, nah, I'm good on that kid. I can't. Yeah, there's just too many mistakes. She's too raw. Love his talent, love his athleticism, love his arm talent, the whole kit and caboodle. But mentally, I don't know if this kid gets it. I can't, put my job on the line drafting him in the first round. And then there's going to be like 4 or 5 teams that are kind of in the middle. Like, yeah, I really like this kid's talent. And, if you put him in the right system, I think he could really flourish. And then there are other people that are like, yeah, but people are going to be all over the place on him. I can see that right now. He's going to be the most polarizing quarterback in this year's first round. I assure you of that. If he goes in the first round, I would not spend the first round pick on him. Somebody probably will. Christopher McLaughlin, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. My guy Chris writes, hey, Lou, everyone says take best player available in the draft. Are there any positions besides quarterback or players you would trade up for in round 1? I've already told you. I would take an elite edge rusher or, Zamir Gibbs in the first round. Those are positions that would be best player available for me, despite us not needing either one of those positions. That would be best player available from a talent perspective. Potentially. We don't know what the draft is going to do, how it's going to shake out, what positions will be available. BPA is a theory, right? Because in theory, you want to take the best player available, but you can't just do that. There's no such thing as BPA without taking into consideration need as well. There's no such thing. All right. You can't have 5 defensive ends, and because you're sitting at 7 and you have a clear need at corner and offensive line, but you're sitting at 7 and the best player on your board is defensive end, you're going to take an end. There may be a corner, there may be an offensive lineman that may not be rated as high on your board as that defensive end, but he's close enough at a position of need. And so you couple BPA with position of need, you mash them together, and you make a selection. All the people screaming BPA, 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 in theory, that sounds good. But if you already have Aaron Rodgers at quarterback, if the Chiefs have Patrick Mahomes, are you spending a first-round pick on a quarterback because you've got Anthony Richardson rated the best player on your board at the time of the pick if you're Kansas City? Hell no. I'm not drafting Anthony Richardson in the first round. He's the best player on my board, though. So what? You know what I need? I need an edge rusher, or I need a linebacker, or I need a new tight end. Travis Kelce's getting older. There's a guy not quite as highly rated on my board as Anthony Richardson, but he's close enough, and he meets a need. BPA meets need, mash it together, make a selection. Rarely, excuse me, are selections made strictly off of BPA. Rarely. It's not a situation where it never occurs, but it rarely happens. So all the people screaming BPA, 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 great. But also understand that need does come into play. You don't want to strictly draft based off of need, because that can get you into trouble, which is why BPA slides in there into the conversation, because you can take that same conversation that I was just having and flip it to the other end of the spectrum, right? So now you have a glaring need at corner. You're sitting there at number 7. You had 2 highly rated corners on your board. Let's take last year's draft, for instance. 2 highly rated corners on your board, and if one of them falls to 7, you're going to jump on them. Well, guess what? Sauce Gardner went number 4, and the LSU corner went number 2. So there go your 2 corners that you had highly rated on your board that you were primed to take at 7. The next closest guy on your board is like all the way down at like 27, barely a first-round pick for you. Okay? Now, are you going to reach at 7 for the guy that's all the way down there at 27? Or are you going to go to another position of need? Your biggest need by far and away is corner. You're getting cooked on a weekly basis at corner. And you've got a division full of elite receivers, and you have to do something at corner. Are you going to reach at 7 for a corner that you don't think that highly of at that particular position? For that, the value where you earned the 7th pick in the draft. You sucked last year. You can't waste it because you have to draft corner. If that guy isn't there and the value doesn't meet, you got to go elsewhere. You're in a position to get an elite talent at 7. I don't really do the whole value thing in the later rounds. That's tremendous value. If you get a guy, Sam Howell was tremendous value for me. Because I had a 2nd round grade, as I told you, late 1st, 2nd, early 2nd round grade on him. He gets selected in the 5th. That's tremendous value in the 5th round, right? But really, I don't really bang the value drum. That's not my thing. I let other people do that. Except for when you're selecting in the top 15 of the draft. Now because you earned that pick. You sucked, especially in the top 10. You sucked ass last year. Or you traded with someone and they sucked ass, and you're benefiting off of that team sucking ass, and you're drafting in the top. Either way, you earned the pick. Whether you made a shrewd move to acquire a pick from a team that didn't think they were going to suck, but they ended up sucking like Philadelphia did with the Saints, or you just sucked ass, and you earned the right to select 7th or 5th or 3rd or 9th. You better maximize that value. You better be getting a guy that has the potential to be a Pro Bowl, All-Pro type player. So are you going to reach at 7 for a guy that's 27th on your board at a position of need? Or are you going to say, you know what? We really need corner. We can get one next round. We also could use a left tackle, and there's a guy that we think is the 9th best player in this draft, and he's sitting right here. Let's take that guy instead. That's what you do. You take the guy that makes the most sense. At a position of need, you still need tackle. Not as much as corner, but you still need tackle. You still need guard, or you still need receiver or tight end. So you take that position instead. So it goes both ways. Are there any positions besides quarterback that you would try? I'm not a big trade up guy. To me, trade up is for teams that are close. One of 2 reasons to trade up. Either you think you're close or you're going to get a quarterback. Those are the only 2 reasons I would trade up in any draft. If I'm close and I'm a X away from taking that next step, like once upon a time, the Falcons thought they were a receiver away. They had Roddy White, and they had Matt Ryan, and they had Michael Turner, the burner at running back, and they were like, man, we are dynamic as an offense. We just need one more guy on the outside. They thought that guy was Julio Jones. So what did they do? They traded all the way up from like 27 to like 6 or whatever to get Julio Jones. And ultimately what happened is 4 years later, Julio Jones helped get them to the Super Bowl. So if you feel like you're that close, yeah, go ahead and do that. If you're not, and you just really love a guy, I think that's foolish. Because if you're not close, if you're not on the doorstep, if you're not knocking on the door of the Super Bowl, you shouldn't be giving away draft capital because you're not that damn close. Either you're going to get a quarterback or you're going to get that final missing piece. If Washington's not trading up for a quarterback, then they shouldn't be trading up. I don't love any player in any draft, period, enough to trade up for him, unless you're telling me there's a generational pass rusher or corner or something like that that I can get my hands on. Then I'd consider it. But even that is still a bit sketchy for me because we still don't have a damn quarterback. So our situation is a little bit different. You give me a team that feels like, i.e. Buffalo. Buffalo's a great example. Buffalo may be one or two pieces away. They need an edge rusher. It was proven again. They signed Von Miller. He gets injured. They didn't have a dog. They didn't have another dog that hunt. They spent all of these, second and third and fourth round picks. AJ Epineza and excuse me, I think Gregory Rousseau was the late first round pick, and Boogie Basham was a set. They spent all these resources on all these dudes, and ain't none of them step up for them yet. If Buffalo said, to hell with this shit, I'm sick of it. I want one of these elite things. I want one of these elite boys. I want a difference maker because that's what's going to put us over the top. That's how we beat Cincinnati. That's how we beat Kansas City. That's how we get to the Super Bowl. We need an edge rusher that can go get the quarterback. That's when you trade up. We are not there yet. So for me, quarterback, or I'm a piece or two away. We don't fit in that category. We fit in the quarterback category, potentially, but we are not a piece or two away. So nothing would make me trade. I would trade back, pick up more picks. If I don't absolutely love what's sitting there at 16, but I'm not opposed to just making a pick at 16. Everybody's favorite thing to do is, hey, trade back, pick up more picks. That's cool. Not every year are you going to trade back, pick up more picks, and get Jahan Dotson. We passed on Chris Olave. He was damn good last season. You do know that, right? If we traded back, and let's say we were all hoping that the safety out of Notre Dame, Hamilton, fell to us, right? Let's say that he fell to us. He struggled for the first 8 to 10 games of the season before they figured out how to use him. And I tried to tell him, bro, he's an around-the-box safety. You can cover a little bit, but you really don't want him too far away. They figured it out eventually. And then he started to play some damn good football for them. But had we moved back and we got our hands on Hamilton, and then he came out stinking, oh my God, do you know what you guys would have said about trading back? They should have never traded back. They should have taken Chris Olave. But you would have been the same person that was just a month and a half ago screaming, trade back, trade back, trade back. 3 months ago, you were screaming, trade back. Sometimes it's the move you don't make that ultimately proves to be the best move. So we'll see. I'm not trading up for anybody. 16 is cool right now. We'll see what happens. Last year, it was imperative that we trade back. I was on the trade back train because of, the Carson Wentz deal and what that was going to do to our draft and how it was going to end. We knew that was going to be a deeper draft class because of COVID and all the guys that were coming into the league at one time. We had never seen that many guys that had NFL talent and you knew you needed more draft capital in those mid rounds. We just didn't have it. So you needed to acquire that, and we did. JP, John Perez, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, John Perez writes, I'm going to be honest. I don't like Ron going golfing. I understand he has a life, but Ron needs to understand that 2023 is a big year for this franchise. Plus, would hiring Bieniemy be a home run hire? So let's take it one at a time. You don't like him going golfing, which is fine. You have an opinion, and you know, you can feel how you want to feel, but you don't think Ron knows this is a big year for him? Like, this is the thing. If he doesn't care about his job, why should you? You shouldn't care more about Ron keeping his job than he does. Trust me. If he thought he was doing something detrimental to his success, he wouldn't be doing it. He's like, I got all the people that need to be at the Senior Bowl at the Senior Bowl. I'm still conducting interviews. I can do that shit over Zoom or Skype. Does anybody even use Skype anymore? Is that even a thing? Whatever. Yeah, I can conduct an interview over Zoom. Like, I don't need to be in person in a room with the guy to conduct an interview. And I'm out here on the golf course with Aaron Rodgers, who I could potentially sway and woo to come to Washington. Like, I have no issues with it. And if you have an issue with it, that's fine. But I've always adopted the mentality. This is a LouieTeeism. You can't care more than somebody else cares about their own situation. For instance, you got one of your kids that's in 11th or 12th grade. You know, you care more than they care when they're in 5th or 6th grade or when they're in the 3rd or 2nd grade. Yeah, you care more than they care, right? You have to instill in them that school is important, getting good grades is important. If you don't, then they don't care most of the time. But they get to the 11th and 12th grade and you've been telling them the same shit for the last 12 years of their life. And it's going in one year and out the other. You're like, look, man, if you don't care about your damn grades, you don't care about graduating and walking across the stage, I don't care. At some point, the light switch will come on for you. When your friends are moving on to the next grade level or they're walking across the stage and your ass still in taking, 10th grade world geography and everybody else is in, 12th grade social studies. Your ass is still taking, algebra 1, algebra 2, and everybody else is in pre-calculus. You'll get the message. When you're a 12th grader sitting in a 10th grade class, you'll get that shit. The light, it'll come on eventually. You're 11th grader in a 9th grade class, that shit'll come on eventually. I ain't gonna keep telling you the same shit over and over again. I can't care more than you care. You sound like you care more than Ron cares. Ron's not gonna put his job at risk by doing something that is detrimental to his success. If he thought him being at this golf tournament was going to be a hindrance to him doing his job adequately, he wouldn't be there. Ron's no dummy. I told you, Ron Rivera is a lot of things. Stupid is not one of them. Stupid is not one of them. As far as hiring the enemy, yeah, that would be a home run hire. That would be the equivalent of Washington having a great draft that people look at and say, oh, that's an A draft. You know how, people are quick to, in the moment after a draft, oh, that was a of a draft. That was a home run draft by XYZ team. And then, 2 years later, that draft is ass. That's how people would react to us getting Eric Bieniemy. He is so beloved. He has turned into a sympathetic figure around the NFL because people still can't understand why this man hasn't gotten a job the last 3 coaching cycles. So now, whomever gets him, everyone's going to be thinking, you just got a guy that could potentially unlock your inner Kansas City Chiefs. So yeah, it would be a home run hire. It may ultimately not work, but somebody's going to get an opportunity to see if Eric Bieniemy is legit as a play caller or not. I'd like it to be us. JP, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. My guy John Perez writes, to piggyback off my super chat, Ron should be prepared for next year well in advance. Another bad start like 1 or 5 and 2 and 6, and he won't last the season. Look, what he does in February isn't going to prepare him for September. What he does in August and early September is going to prepare him for September and October. You can put yourself in a position to be successful in the offseason doing little things, but ultimately, it's what you do in training camp the preseason, and then ultimately during the week of practice leading up to the game and how you prepare, that's going to put you in a position to succeed. We haven't put together good enough game plans on a weekly basis. We've made too many excuses. We don't have this guy, or we had this guy out. Last year, the excuse was no Cam Curl in the first 2 weeks defensively and no Brian Robinson. We couldn't run the ball the way we wanted to run the ball. How many times did we hear that shit from Ron? No, we couldn't run the ball the way we wanted to run the ball. As if that shit would have made a big difference. Brian Robinson was averaging damn near 8 yards a carry against the Giants in the second game, and he still ain't get the goddamn rock. Don't tell me about Brian Robinson not getting the football and not being healthy enough. Yeah, no, that was a part of your plan, and he got shot, and plans changed. I get it. That was unfortunate for everybody involved. Brian Robinson, the team, because they wanted to run the ball to start to see. They didn't want Carson Wentz throwing the shit 45 times in the first 2 weeks on average. But it happened. They've got to be better prepared, period. Better adjustments, better prepared. The biggest thing that I've seen is that we come out flat in games. You look up, how often is it that we're up 10-0 in a ball game? Early stages of the second quarter is 10-0. That's why that first Giants game hurt so much. Because we were up 10-0. Should have been 14 if Heineke doesn't miss a wide open Logan Thomas. And we're feeling good. And remember, this is winners of 5 out of 6, right? Winners of 5 out of your last 6. So we're playing excellent football. And you're up 10-0 on the road against a struggling Giants team. That's so rare for us. We didn't know how to handle it. That 10-point lead was gone like that. That's why I was nervous against the Texans. I'm like, I don't really know what to do in this. I'm like nervous. I don't know what it feels like to be up, 13 and then 20-0. I'm like, is this shit legal? Are we allowed to be up by this many points at one time? Because under Ron Rivera, we're never up big. We're never up 2 scores. Never. We're either trailing or we're barely ahead. And anytime we take a 2-score lead, the running joke that I gave you guys last year, you know what's about to happen when we take a 2-score lead. The very next possession, the offense may leave the field with a 2-score lead. They will not enter the field with a 2-score lead the next time they see the football. Our defense is going to make sure they give it up. Field goal, touchdown, doesn't matter. You're up 10, we'll be up 7 or 3 the next time we see the football. You're up 13, we'll be up 6 the next time we see the football. He needs to start games faster. You're not going to start games faster by what you do in February. How about not being down 24-0 at halftime to the Eagles, or not being down 22-0 at halftime to the Detroit Lions? That'd be nice, right? Not in a big deficit early in ball games. How about let's not be down by 9 points with, 5 minutes to go against the Indianapolis Colts, who suck and are starting a second-year quarterback in Sam Ehlinger for the first time in his career. Let's not do that. That Green Bay game was like a season changer for us. We could have been down like 21-0 in that game. Easy. They don't throw a flag on that Heineke fumble, scoop, and score. We're going to lose that game. That would have been another game. We would have been down 14, 17, 20 points early in the ball game. You could argue that flag singularly changed the course of our season. we're going to lose that game. We're going to fall to 2-6, or would that be 2-5? You're going to fall to 2-5 on the season, and you're not winning 4 out of your next 5 like we ultimately did. You're probably going to start losing some games. You probably don't have the moxie and the poise and the belief to beat Indianapolis in that game. So, look, at the end of the day, it is what it is. Ron is golfing this weekend. I don't have a problem with it. What he does in February, especially early February. If it were late February, maybe there's more of a problem with it. You got some things you should be focused in on, trying to re-sign free agents, starting to look towards, free agency with other teams and what they're going to be allowing to hit the streets, and what you may be able to bring into Washington, who may be a good fit, or whatever the case may be. You're getting closer to the start of the new league year. If it's late February, okay, maybe. Man, we talking about early February. The Super Bowl hasn't even happened yet. I ain't tripping. Neither should you. But again, I won't. And you're not wrong about starting faster. We do need to start faster. Rob, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes, you think Chris Paul is an option at left guard? Sure. Why not? It shouldn't stop you from drafting a guard. Shouldn't stop you from drafting an interior offensive lineman to push him and potentially take that opportunity away from him. I don't think you write his name in at Penn, but you may be able to pencil him in at one left guard position right now. But Chris Paul isn't stopping me from drafting a guard in the second round, the third round, the fourth round, or going out and getting a guard in free agency. Chris Paul is not stopping me from doing that. So, yeah. Told y'all Evan Brown from the Lions could play guard or center. Chris Paul isn't stopping me from going out and getting Evan Brown in free agency and giving him a 3-year, $33 million deal. But he definitely is in the mix. I mean, we can say that about a number of guys. At this point, have you guys given up on Sadiq Charles? I think probably most people have given up on him. But I mean, he's probably in the mix too, right? But I think at this point, probably giving up on him as well. Dejan Bell, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Dejan writes, if we hire EB, Eric Bieniemy, do you think the tight end position will be high priority? And since you're a Notre Dame fan, is Myers, his name is Mayers, Michael Mayer, is Mayer. Is Mayer a good pick at 16? Michael Mayer is the closest thing we've seen to Rob Gronkowski. Like, everybody wants to throw that out there. Pratt Freiermuth looks like. No, he's not. Pratt Freiermuth looks nothing like Gronk. Michael Mayer is a legit 6'5", 6'6", 6'7", 270, 265. Like, legit Gronk size. Blocks his ass off, catches everything, breaks tackles, better athlete than you think, run after catch. If there's ever been a guy, and I told you, if you're coming to Notre Dame, I always tell you, I will endorse any offensive lineman and any tight end. Those are the two positions that we are a factory, and we produce those at a high level year in, year out. Everything else is a crapshoot. You're on your own. Good luck. We got an edge rusher coming out this year. He's solid. At your own risk, at your own peril. Okay? We don't produce game-changing edge rushers. Solid guys that hang around the league for 5 to 7 years, journeymen. We don't produce game changers at edge rush. Justin Tuck was probably the last really good defensive lineman that we've sent to the NFL. We don't do it very often. So, and there have been some guys that I was high on that just for whatever reason didn't get it done in the NFL. Michael Mayer is a certified beast. Okay. Whomever gets him is getting an absolute animal at the tight end position. I love him dearly. His game translates in day one. He walks in and you give him 2 years on the right team and he'll be a top 5 tight end in the NFL. I kid you not. He's that good. Will that be a priority? I don't think so. I don't know if Eric Bieniemy will come in here and say, I need a Travis Kelce. Well, they'll say, well, let me introduce you to, Amani Rodgers and Cole Turner. What do you think? And Eric Bieniemy may be like, I don't know. We'll see. Let's just roll with it. Let's see. Now, you get rid of Logan Thomas. Remember, I went through the mock offseason where he was, by Mark Tyler, he was released. Cap savings. You go that route, maybe we can talk about tight end at 16. Now, this is why I say free agency changes things. Because you release Logan Thomas, now tight end is also on that first round, second round, list of positions that I wouldn't mind drafting. So again, we'll see. Rob U, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy Rob U writes, Lou, would love to see them work with Hal, but there will be growing pains. Don't want this staff drafting a QB or recycling a veteran QB. I think that's the sentiment that most fans have at this point is don't really want the recycled veteran, no matter how good he has been in his career, i.e. Aaron Rodgers. And I don't want this regime in charge of drafting a guy that they may not be able to see through the process. Because you like him, that's why you drafted him, but the next GM, next coach may not be in love with him. Now they're saddled with a guy for another 2 or 3 seasons that they really don't have interest in trying to make work. So that's why we're, as fans, a bit apprehensive about any kind of young quarterback. The veteran route, depending on how you do it, may not handcuff you, i.e. Carson Wentz. Yeah, it sucks. You gave up 2 draft picks for him. You don't want to do that. You had to cut some players. You gave him $28 million last year. Yeah, all that shit sucks. But moving forward, it doesn't saddle you. You're not hamstrung by Carson Wentz on the roster for another 2 years at 29 next year and 32 the year after that. Then you can get out. No. So they could bring in a veteran, theoretically, that guy not work, and he could be gone next year and the new regime comes in and you hit the ground running, start anew, right? So we'll see what happens. Again, most fans would like Sam Howell to get a chance. I think that's if we took a poll, I think that's the option that would win out. So we'll see what happens. And there will be growing pains, to your point. Like that pick he threw in the end zone against Dallas, there are going to be mistakes like that are going to drive you nuts. But that comes with the territory of a young quarterback. AG, real one. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, "Sup, Lou? Sup, AG?" Says, draft left offensive tackle, left tackle, and move Leno to guard. Not easy to do, and that's not what their rationale is. He says, also, Chris Paul showed flashes. What do you think? They're not moving Leno to guard. Leno is a tackle in their mind, and when they're done with Leno, they're done with Leno. They're not going to experiment with kicking him inside and trying to get him to play guard and none of that stuff. If Leno's not playing left or right tackle, Charles Leno isn't on this roster anymore. They're not looking to reshuffle the deck and try to get your best 5 on the field. Nah, we're going to get a real guard or a real center and a real tackle. Like, flexibility on the offensive line is great until you don't actually have a guy at a position. What do I mean by that? Sam Cosmi can play guard or tackle. That's cool until you I don't know if he's a guard or a tackle. He ain't really great at either right now. And maybe he turns out to be a damn good guard. Too injured to find out last year. One thing I can tell you, he's not a great tackle. Unless what I saw from him last year was him being compromised and dealing with injuries, and that's why guys were beating him. I mean, he got beat in week 1, if you remember. clean as day by the first overall pick for the Jacksonville Jaguars. He was getting beat a lot last year. So guard, and I said when he came out, if I go back to my my analysis of him pre-draft, he was one of the guys that I said, I don't love him as a tackle. I think he's a guard in the NFL. Now, one of my rationale for him was he was finesse. He wasn't, a physical guy in the run game, and he's actually been the opposite. Not enough finesse. He's a tremendous athlete, is Sam Cosmi. Probably one of the better athletes on the team, but you don't always see it when he gets out of his stance. He's one of the strongest guys on the team. You don't always see that. But you do see it sometimes in the run game. Chris Paul showed flashes. I can't confirm nor deny that. I didn't watch the Week 18 game against Dallas where he started to be able to make that assessment. Maybe I'll go back and see how he actually played. And I can tell you, he didn't stick out at me watching it live. And there are times where offensive line play sticks out at you when you're watching it live. And you go, wow, I thought he had a good game. I'll go back and watch. But I think what I'm going to go back and see is going to confirm how I felt in the moment. Like, this guy had a really good game. You can tell when guys have bad games, and he wasn't on that list. Although I think he might have had a penalty or two in that Dallas game. I think. I'm not sure about that. Either way, I'll go back and watch and see how he played, so I have a better feel for whether or not he's a guy that could really man up one of these guard spots or not. I'll get back to you on that. Let's see. 407 Ski Lock. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. 407 Ski Lock writes, at 16, I like cornerback Cam Smith or Jay Weatherspoon. Dogs. There are a lot of guys that I've seen mocked to Washington, most of them corners. There's going to be some value at 16 at corner. Whether all of these guys end up being really good in the league or not remains to be seen. But it's going to be some stuff at 6. I don't think we will get to 16 and be like, damn, it ain't nothing left at corner. It's going to be something left at corner. By the time we get to the clock, get on the clock, there'll be at least 2 or 3 guys that you're looking at and saying, hey, I can see him in burgundy and gold, no problems. So, yeah. Video channel. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Video channel. Writes, Ron and Anthony Lynn ready for that 2-to-1 run ratio and will draft Bijan Robinson in the first, then a few linemen afterwards. That would be extreme. Like, Bijan Robinson is an elite talent, and it would be like a clone of Brian Robinson, but just faster and more dynamic and explosive. Physical. The difference is he can hit the home run, I think. And we'll find that out when he runs his 40 and all that. But dude was a touchdown machine at Texas. Really carried their offense this year. And in a league where the running back position is making a comeback, it's still diminished in terms of value, specifically in the draft. Nobody really wants to take a running back very highly in a draft. I mean, look at the impact that those running backs were potentially having last year before they got injured. And you got I think who's going to ultimately win Rookie of the Year offensively in the running back for the Seahawks, Kenneth Walker III. That's a second-round pick. Breece Hall was well on his way to making a case for Offensive Rookie of the Year before he got hurt. It's a second-round pick. Like, teams, you can find stud running backs in the second and the third and the fourth round. And so you got to be like a truly special talent to go in the first round, specifically the first half of the round, the top half of the round. It's nothing to see a really good back go 22 like Josh Jacobs did for the Raiders, or see a guy go like 32nd overall like Clyde Edwards-Helaire went to the Chiefs. Like, it's nothing to see that happen. You know, Rashad Penny went, what, like 29 or something like that to the Seahawks. Like, it's nothing to see that happen. Back into the first round, you're more willing to take a flyer, you know, a first-round flyer on a running back that you think is really good. It's rare nowadays to see a running back go in the first 16 picks. You got to be a really special talent. Bijan Robinson is special, but I don't know if he's first 16. Zamir Gibbs, because of how the NFL is transforming into a dominant passing league, if you've got a pass catching back out of the backfield, you can do more with that than you can with Derrick Henry, which I know sounds crazy. And Derrick Henry can carry you a long effing way. But Jonathan Taylor led the league in rushing, was the most dominant back in the league in 2021, and they still didn't make the playoffs. You get a dominant pass catching receiver out of the backfield, and a team becomes really tough to stop. Look at the Lions. They literally missed the playoffs by a game. And they were hard charging, and really nobody wanted any parts of the Lions. Nobody. DeAndre Swift makes a huge effing difference, because what he can do as a runner, but more importantly, as a pass catcher out of the back, it changes things. You create mismatches. A running back running the football, that's cool. And if he's the dominant back, he can put the team on his back and carry you. You can win some games. But you get one-on-one. You don't get one-on-one matchups when you hand the running back the football. It's 11 dudes trying to tackle one guy. You get a pass catching back out in space, it's one-on-one, man. My dynamic running back who also can catch the football, which is why Christian McCaffrey is such a menace. Because you can line him up one-on-one with your linebacker, and it's unfair. Alvin Kamara, unfair. Zamir Gibbs, I think, has that ability. But Ron and Anthony Lynn, I know what Anthony Lynn wants to do. He wants to run the football. I think Ron wants to run the football, but I think Ron also acknowledges that, and we got these receivers, and if we can get a quarterback, I don't mind us throwing the ball a little bit more. I'm more so want to run the ball because I don't trust the quarterback position. Like, think that's really ingrained in his mind. So, I don't know. We'll see. Ryan A., thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, thoughts on Will Levis sitting out the Senior Bowl. Generally, when guys sit out opportunities to showcase their skills and separate themselves from guys who don't have that ability, I often think you're hiding something. Now, in Will Levis's case, he may be thinking, and his agent probably told him this, which is why he's sitting out. Remember, a lot of this stuff is about positioning. All right. Once upon a time, it had everything to do with competing and competition and being an alpha, right? Yeah, go out there and compete, man. Your peers are doing it. You should do it. That ain't how that shit work no more, man. It's all about playing checkers. You know, some people playing checkers and you trying to play chess. What he's doing is he's setting himself up. Look, there's nothing I can do with this. And this may not be the way he's thinking, but this could have a part of the thought process, right? This may not be the sole reason why he's doing this, but this might be a part of why he's doing this. He might be thinking to himself, I could go in here and I could absolutely kill the Senior Bowl. And maybe one or two teams that were on the fence about me may change their mind and maybe decide that they want to come up and draft me. And I may be the second pick in the draft. I wow the Texans. Or I may be the fourth pick in the draft to Indianapolis. They weren't sure about me, but now they are. Hell, I might even be the seventh pick in the draft. Right? They weren't sure about me. Now they are. But if I come in here and I stink it up, what was the biggest takeaway from the Senior Bowl last year? You remember? I'll tell you, the biggest takeaway from the Senior Bowl last year was that no quarterback separated themselves. They all stunk at the Senior Bowl. It scared the league away. Kenny Pickett was the only guy that survived the Senior Bowl last year, and teams still said, hey, I see first-round talent. And he struggled at the Senior Bowl. It was wet. It was raining. He was having trouble gripping the football because he got small hands. Malik Willis was struggling out there. All of those boys. Desmond Ridder, all of them boys were struggling. Hence, third-round selections for all of them. Sam went in the 5th round. I don't know if he did anything wrong, but he wasn't. I don't think he was at the Senior Bowl, though. I think they were inviting everybody, though, last year because it was a different year. It was a COVID year. I'm not sure. Either way. He might be thinking, I can do more damage to my stock going to Mobile and not having a great week of practice than I can elevating it. I can't get much higher than I'm probably not going to penetrate 1 or 2. Probably not. With the profile that those guys have, I'm probably not going to get higher than the 3rd best quarterback in this draft class. Probably not going to be able. And there'll be some that like Will Levis and like his size and his arm talent and all of this, that, and the third. But the likelihood is he's not going to be selected higher than C.J. Stroud and Bryce Young. And his agent probably told him, bro, you got nothing to gain by going out there. Now, is he not there at all? Or is he not participating on the field, but he's doing all of the, meetings and things of that nature? That'd be interesting to know. If he's there, which I think he should be, talking to teams, they're going to ask him why you're not playing, why you're not out here practicing. And he can just tell them, got a little minor oblique thing that I had taken care of after. You can tell them some bullshit. If you don't want to sound like you were a bitch for not competing because you were perfectly healthy, you just didn't want to. Hey, yeah, I had a little thing with my ankle. I just didn't want to tweak it. I want to be ready for, my pro day, that sort of thing. There's ways around it. These guys are coached. But the real reason is probably I don't have much to gain by going out here. Only I can lose. I can only lose. I can't gain really anything. You may convince 1 or 2 teams. You're not convincing the 2 teams that matter. Now, I say that, but who are the 2 teams that matter? The Bears aren't taking a quarterback. Somebody's going to trade up to 1, right? That's the assumption. You wow a team, maybe they're the team that trades up to 1 to go get you. Anyway, I digress. Your breath hot, rather get shot than talk to you a lot. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, why doesn't Smash Mouth football work anymore? It works to a degree. It works to an extent. You can win running the football. The Bengals did it the Browns did it 2 years ago when they went to the playoffs and won a playoff game. Or that was 3 years ago, 2020. Ran the football all the way to the playoffs, almost beat Kansas City and Arrowhead. They had a 2-headed monster. The Titans ran the football all the way to the number 1 seed in the AFC last year, and Henry missed the final 8 games of the season. And they still ran with Deontay Foreman all the way to the number 1 seed. 2 years before that, or the year before that, Derrick Henry, they rode him all the way, or 2 years before that, I said it right. 2 years before that in 2020, or was it 2019, actually, they rode Derrick Henry all the way to the AFC Championship game. Remember, 2019 was the year that Ryan Tannehill, I think, had 7 completions in the divisional round win over Brady, his last game in New England. He had, I think, 7 completions in the first game. The following week against the Ravens on the road, I think he might have had 12 completions. I think maybe it was 10 or 9. He was literally a passenger. Now, he made some big throws in those games. It wasn't many completions, but the ones he had were huge 3rd down conversions late in the game, things of that nature. But that was all Derrick Henry. He was on a tear in the playoffs. You can still win But at some point, your quarterback's going to have to throw the football. It's only going to get you so far. At some point in some game, it could come in the regular season, it could come in the playoffs. At some point, your quarterback is going to have to throw the football. I'm waiting on that game for the Eagles and Jalen Hurts, because he hasn't looked good in his playoffs as a thrower of the football. But he hasn't had to. Played the Giants, they weren't ready. Played the 49ers, Brock Purdy gets hurt. I would have loved to see what would have happened if Purdy would have stayed healthy, because I really, truly believe the 49ers would have forced Jalen Hurts to have to throw the football. And I don't think he would have done a good job of it. He did not look good in the game throwing the football. Will the Chiefs? I don't think the Chiefs are going to force him to have to throw the football. That's why I think the Eagles are going to win. I think they're going to be able to lean on the run game, use Hurts' legs, timely throws by Hurts here and there. But I don't think he's going to be, 27 of 34 for 376 and, 2 touchdowns and Super Bowl MVP. These games he's played, go look at his numbers and remember how the games went. Eagles fans will try to, convince you, well, we didn't need to throw. That doesn't excuse him hovering around 50 some odd % completion percentage when you did throw it. Okay, fine. You didn't throw it a bunch. You were dominating. You took the air out of the football. Okay. Well, then he should be 7 of 11, 7 of 10. He should be 12 of 17, not, 15 of 29 or whatever the hell he was against the 49ers. 15 to 25 or whatever the hell he was. 15 to 27 or whatever the shit was. At some point, you're going to have to throw the football unless you're dominating teams. You can win with smash mouth football, but you better have a damn good defense and you better be dominating teams and you better be excellent in the red zone. Because if not, at some point, you got to throw the football to win. Your breath hot, rather get shot than talk to you a lot. Writes, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, hate to say it, but the Giants had an outstanding run game when they had Brandon Jacobs in that O-line. Just overpowering. Wish we had a Brandon Jacobs. Boy, you still stuck in the mid to late 2000s, man. You got to let that shit go, bro. Seriously. Like, the game has evolved and changed so drastically since Brandon Jacobs was a member of the New York Giants. Like, you stuck in the 2000s, man. You got to get out of that shit, man. It's a different game right now. It's played differently. And, running backs don't even look like Brandon Jacobs. And when they do, they're called Derrick Henry, but except a lot faster. Like, you got to come to the 2020s, man. We in the 2020s now. You talk about 15 years ago, 10, 15, 12 years ago, bro. I need you to come back to reality. Jamal Hamlin, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Jamal writes, hey, Lou, I don't want to be negative, but I don't see us getting deals done for both Curl and Payne. I think Payne walks. I hope I'm wrong. Well, Payne isn't walking anywhere. If he's walking, it'll be next year. He's not going anywhere. They're going to put the franchise tag on this year. I assure you of that. Deron Payne will not be playing for a different team this year. Whether we get a long-term deal with him done or not remains to be seen, but he will be playing for Washington this upcoming season. I assure you of that. And Cam Curl's still under contract. So now whether we re-sign both of them, if they don't get Payne signed this year, I don't think they get him signed next year. It's not impossible. The Giants franchise tag Leonard Williams, and then he played under that tag, and then they franchise tagged him again, and then they got a deal done. So it's not impossible, but if you franchise tag a guy once and you don't get a deal done, and you franchise tag him again, the likelihood is you're about to get a Brandon Sheriff Kirk Cousins treatment, and he's about to walk. So They best get that deal done this year, whatever it takes. Find a way to get it done. I think they will. I think it's going to be just like Terry and Jonathan Allen before him. It's going to be done in July at some point. And we'll be sitting here all off season. They need to re-sign Deron Payne, and y'all will be sweating because unlike John Allen, unlike Terry, who still had a year left on their contracts, he does not. Those guys weren't on franchise tags. He is. It's a little bit different. So you guys are going to be sweating bullets like you always do. Oh, my God. I told y'all last year, don't worry. Terry's getting a deal. Y'all were over here tripping. Told y'all 2 years ago, don't worry. Jonathan Allen's getting a deal. Y'all was over here tripping. Y'all going to do the same thing this year. Y'all going to be over here sweating bullets. It's a little different this year, though. Because unlike those guys, he's actually going to get, even if it's snatched from him 2 days before free agency, a week before free agency, whatever that deadline to slap the tag on that player is, even if it's, him getting that close to free, he'll be that close to free agency for hitting the open market and seeing what his true value is. That man's coming off of an 11.5 sack season. You damn right someone would break him off. Are you kidding me? He's going to be franchise tagged, and they're going to try to get a deal done. And if they don't, I think he's as good as gone next year. But we'll see. Payne's not going anywhere this year. I assure you of that. Mike Jink, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Mike Jink, thank you for being a member of the MOBB rights. Louie Lou, Mike Jink, what's good, my guy? Go Birds. What's good with you, man? Nothing much. Same old, talking Commanders ball like I always am. We'll be talking about your Eagles all next week. I like your chances, man. I like your chances a lot, more so than I did against San Francisco. That's for sure. We'll see. Mike Jake, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Mike Jake writes, what's your opinion on these Super Bowl ticket prices? I've seen some ridiculous numbers, man. One, it's indoors. That always helps. Okay. Arizona this time of the year is probably absolutely beautiful to be. Right. The weather is probably mid to low 70s. Like, I imagine that that's going to be excellent. So there's that. There's no threat of, inclement weather. You're inside. So I think there's that as well. But you have to look at the two teams playing too. You got two MVP candidates locking horns in Jalen Hurts and Patrick Mahomes. You got Andy Reid going up against his old team. There's so many storylines. You got two brothers starting at quarterback for the first time in NFL history in the Super Bowl. And then let's keep it a buck. You got the two best teams in football, each number one seed in their respective conferences, locking horns. It's a great matchup. It's going to make for entertaining theater. I don't see anybody getting blown out of this game. And I think all of those things coupled with, how much star power is going to be on the field, Eagles fans being so desperate to once again hoist the Lombardi, I think a lot of that is driving up the ticket prices. And I've seen some crazy numbers, man. 6 and 7K for a view that I'm like, bro, I'd rather be at home watching it on a 60-inch than to be sitting there spending 6 racks. Are you kidding me? But if it's your squad and you didn't get to go to the last Super Bowl that you won, and here's an opportunity, you're going to take it. If you can afford it, you're going to take it. Chiefs fans are spoiled at this point, but they got a little taste of humble pie the last couple of years because they didn't make it. They got spoiled after 19 and 20 back-to-back years of going to the Super Bowl, but, they didn't go last year. So it's just been 1 year. They've been to 3 out of the last 4 Super Bowls. So not going last year, not winning in 2020, and so having not won the Super Bowl in roughly 3 seasons, they're desperate. They want this one bad. And you got to remember, the one they won in 2019 was their first. I take that back. I think they were in one of those early Super Bowls with Lynn Dawson and Hank Stram. And we got to matriculate the ball down the field, fellas. I think that was like Super Bowl 2 or 3 or some shit like that. They had already merged with the AFL. But since the Super Bowl era began, I think that would have been their second. But they're hungry too. So I think that you're seeing a confluence of a lot of things. But yeah, those tickets, man, they hitting dudes over the head, man. Hitting dudes over the head for sure. Your breath hot, rather get shot than talk to you a lot. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, Lou, you don't think a Brandon J can succeed today? I mean, I've already said Derrick Henry is, Brandon Jacobs wasn't as fast as Henry, but he was pretty fast for his size. But Derrick Henry is the closest thing you'll get to Brandon Jacobs. And we see Derrick Henry's impact. Yes, a guy that size can definitely have an impact on the game. But again, as I mentioned, at some point, your quarterback's going to have to throw the football. You're not going to, like, you're talking about Brandon Jacobs. The Super Bowl that they won with Jacobs on the squad, which was the 2007 one, that probably was more Ahmad Bradshaw than it was Brandon Jacobs. Jacobs was the hammer, but Ahmad Bradshaw was probably more impactful and influential to that Super Bowl win than Brandon Jacobs was. I'd guess. I mean, that's a long time ago, but I'd venture to guess that's the case. Anyway. Your breath hot, rather get shot than talk to you a lot. Oh, I see your comment about Rihanna. Maybe. I mean, there's a lot of Rihanna fans out there too. So yeah, that may factor into the pricing. I didn't even think about her because I don't give a shit about the halftime show. I'm sorry. I don't. I've never been a halftime show guy. So I don't usually get hung up on that. But I think that's baked into the price as well. Yeah, absolutely. I forgot all about that. And I think you're 110% spot on. Rihanna has something to do with it as well. Absolutely. Your breath hot, rather get shot than talk to you a lot. Thank you for the super chat. Writes, I think the Eagles are the best team in the NFL, but I just feel like Mahomes will find a way to carry the Chiefs to the dub. Dude is a genius, plus Andy Reid. I think the Eagles, from a roster construction standpoint, are the best team in football. Absolutely. I would concur with that statement. And I totally get where you're coming from with Mahomes and Reed. You're not wrong. But I don't trust the Chiefs defense against this Eagles offense is what it ultimately boils down to. If they can somehow neutralize the run and force Jalen, because unlike the previous 2 games where the defense and, whatever, transpired, dictated the game and it got out of hand quickly and Hurts was able to just manage the game. That's not, I don't think, what's going to happen. Even if they're having success on offense, they're going to have to score because the Chiefs, unless that defense continues to just steamroll everyone, and I think they can score on the Eagles defense. We'll see. But Eagles really haven't been scored on since Dallas scored on them in what was that, week 16, I think. So we'll see. If the Chiefs can do that. They got a lot of guys injured. I think we heard today for the first time about the receivers. Juju Smith-Schuster and Kadarius Toney are trending towards being able to play, but that's not a definite. But McCole Hardman is going to be out with the pelvic injury, rather. So those are big, storylines as well. How many healthy receivers can the Chiefs get on the field? It's going to be tougher to get the job done with Justin Watson, who's no slouch, but he's not Kadarius Toney and McCole Hardman, that's for sure. So, anyway. Your breath hot, rather get shot than talk to you a lot. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, Another thing, real quick. You see how he leads receivers and the zip on that ball, quick decisions. Nan, definitely want to see more. That was one of the most impressive things about Howell in Week 18 versus Dallas. I love the athleticism. Knew he could do that. Love the deep ball. What did I just tell you in my report? Knew he could do that. Throws an excellent deep ball. And those things, don't get me wrong, those things were exhilarating to watch. Him, cutting it back against the grain on a read option and scoring a touchdown, offering us something that we didn't have all year, which was a dual threat in the red zone. As a quarterback that can run it and threaten the defense that way, open up things for other players. The deep ball to Terry, that was a thing of beauty, right? What was most impressive was something we hadn't seen all season. We've seen deep balls be completed and be things of beauty this season. Wentz did it in week 1. Heineke had a couple. One against the Eagles, one against Green Bay. He's had a couple of deep balls that were just gorgeous, right? We've seen the deep ball be completed. Wentz had 2 to De'Ami Brown against the Titans. We've seen deep balls completed this year. We haven't really seen the quarterback impact the game with his legs, but we knew Heineke was capable, and when we needed it the most in certain games, the Colts game, the first Giants game, he used his legs to extend plays. What we haven't seen a lot of this season is guys catching the football in stride with the opportunity to get yards after the catch. We probably saw as much, if not the most, yak with guys not getting touched, by the way. Like, we've seen Terry run through 2-3 arm tackles. We saw Jahan spin on the Giants for the touchdown to tie the game up the first time around. We seen guys make things happen. I'm talking about a guy winning on a slant and you get it to him with zip, timing, rhythm, in stride in front of him, catch it. Jahan had 2 of those in the game. Jahan also had a curl that he caught where Howell leads him to the outside, away from the defender, up the sideline. He catches it. And I thought Jahan was going to break that, run by that guy and force that safety to have to make the tackle. But he got his ankles clipped. We saw Terry's first touchdown, tight spiral, zip, catch it, score, right? Remember the touchdown Terry caught against the Giants? The same play, same concept. Except he had to one-hand catch it behind him and then break a tackle against the Giants in the Meadowlands. See the difference? Caught that one against Dallas and ran away because it was in front of him to allow him to run away from the defender and score. That was the most impressive thing, was where the ball placement, the accuracy in which he was putting the football. I would love to see more of that. Jamal Hamlin, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Jamal writes, we need help with kick returner and punt returner. Do you think we draft? And if so, who? Also, do you think Patterson will have a greater role next year? No on Patterson. I think I would like to see more of him, but I think he'll be back in some capacity, practice squad more likely than not. But I think if they're going to do something at running back, it would involve them upgrading with Patterson, upgrading and bringing in another guy. As far as punt and kick returns are concerned, I don't know if you watched my video on the mock offseason. I think that was now 2 weeks ago. It might have been last week. Yeah, it was last week. I think it was last week. But I specifically said in day 3, I did not have a receiver on my list of items that would be, for me, an option in the first 3 rounds, first 2 days of the draft. As soon as we hit day 3 in round 4, that's when I entered wide receiver into the discussion, because, and it doesn't have to be a receiver, it could be a corner, right? Corners can return punts and kickoffs too. But I'm looking to replace Dax Milne, like him and his position. So unless you find a dynamic corner that can do it, okay, fine. Dax can stay. corner is the kick and punt returner, whatever the case may be, cool. Maybe Antonio Gibson continues to have that role as the punt return, kickoff return man. Whatever. I just don't want to see Dax Milne back there, right? Because he offers you nothing other than catching the football, which I appreciate because at one point we didn't even have that. But when you have such a small margin for error as we do, when you're winning games 17-16 and 20-17, and you're eking by opponents, I need every advantage I can get, including special teams. I can't afford to lose yardage on returns, or let the ball hit the ground, or, we pin them deep in their own territory. And because you're running like you're stuck in quicksand, what should be a 18-yard return on a kick that was clearly out kicking his coverage, but he boomed the shit out of it 70 yards in the air. But you're supposed to return it 18 yards because he kicked it so far that nobody can get down there, and you make it a net of 52 yards, which is fine. But now we got great field position. Instead, because you're moving in slow motion for me, moving slow motion for me. Now you only get a return of 6, and that's like a 64-yard punt, and the field position's been flipped. Yeah, return man is definitely in play. I can't tell you any names right now. I told you I haven't dove into the draft yet, but that's going to take place next week. I'm going to start next week. For those of you who have been following me, then you know how I'm about to dive in. But without question, that's something that we have to, whether you get it in free agency or the draft, they got to address that. They had a guy, they let him walk. I think they minimized his importance. And then I can't help but think they have to realize how important he truly was. Your breath hot, rather get shot than talk to you a lot. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Writes. What do you think of Milo Eifler? Can he compete with the ones? I really don't know, man. We haven't seen a lot of him. What we saw of him was in the preseason. And at times it was impressive, but nothing that really was earth-shattering that jumped out at you that made you say, oh, my God, we got to have Milo Eifler, on the field. They've been working with him for 2 years now. So clearly they see something in him that they like, which is why they haven't cut him loose yet. But if you're working with a guy this long and he hasn't been able to get on the field, I mean, we kept cycling through John Bostic and David Mayo. If he can't get on the field in some capacity when that's what we're reduced to, I don't really know if there's a future for him as a starter. Maybe as a special teamer, but I don't know. Your breath hot, rather get shot than talk to you a lot. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Writes. Lastly, any unproven player you want to see more from? Not really. We don't have a lot of the one thing I can admire about Ron is a lot of our young players play. We don't have a lot of young guys that's off on the side, not getting any run. I mean, they stuck Christian Holmes out there. He wasn't very good, but they stuck him out there, right? They stuck Rashad Wildgoose out there. Wasn't very good, but they stuck him out there. We saw Patua Ia played really well. I was actually impressed. John Ridgway played a hell of a lot. I hope he mends quickly because he did get injured in that, I think it was the Dallas game. He did tear his pec, I think. But he's got a big role moving forward. Ridgway does. He threw the young boys out there. Brian Robinson, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The youngest got to play for the most part. Jahan, obviously. So I can't think of any dudes. You get excited about the back end roster dudes when you don't have talent on your team. We got excited in 2019 and 2020 with back end of the roster dudes who probably shouldn't even be in the NFL, but because we sucked and our roster was so trash that you start talking about you shouldn't be talking about guys like that if you got a quality NFL roster. There may be one or two guys that come out of nowhere and you're like, hey, man, you got to make some space for this dude somehow, some way. But for the most part, like, we shouldn't be having Nico Marley conversations like we used to. Marco Mitchell and bullshit like that. We used to get really excited about some of these preseason warriors, right? That's dead, man. You know, the last one I think I got excited about was Steven Sims Jr., you know, and at least he had a cup of tea and he's playing well for the Steelers right now. But I ain't really getting too, you know, hyped up on dudes. Amani Rodgers was a pleasant surprise last year. And I tried to disregard him. I really, truly did. But the injuries at the position and then him getting the opportunity and then seeing him, I was like, hey, it's something to this kid. But for the most part, it ain't too many of them dudes. You know, I will say Cole Turner. We didn't see nearly enough of him last year. I throw his name out there as a guy that I would love to see a lot more of. So there's one. There's one. Joe Rockhead J. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Joe Rockhead J writes, Howell is the first QB since Cousins, gasp, who's nowhere near his ceiling and his floor looks safe based on available info. Yeah, I guess you could say that. But I mean, since Cousins, we haven't had many young quarterbacks, to be fair. Literally, it's been Dwayne and now Sam Howell. Everybody else has been veteran retreads, from Alex Smith to Case Keenum to Kyle Allen to Taylor Heineke to Ryan Fitzpatrick to Carson Wentz. So we haven't really, and I don't want to forget old number 19. Oh, what was his name? That played against the Eagles in the COVID game. I don't know why I'm blanking on his name right now. But yeah, all veteran quarterbacks, essentially. So we have only had one other young quarterback since Kirk Cousins. That's Dwayne Haskins. So to your point, though, yes, he does seem somewhat safe. But I don't even know if I can make that assertion yet, even though I think you're probably right about that. Like, his floor isn't out of the league in, 4 years. I think his floor is bottom tier NFL starter, upper tier NFL backup. Which is what you would deem safe. If you're a Jacoby Brissett, you're safe, right? Could start for a team that's looking for a bridge quarterback type of deal. And his upside, as we know, he's just barely scratching the surface on, could be of an elite quarterback. We don't know. We'll see. So, yeah, I think that's not a bad assessment. Anyway, I died. Garrett Gilbert. Thank you, Yoshi. Garrett Gilbert. Garrett Gilbert was his name. Thank you, guys, for chopping it up with the kid tonight. Really appreciate y'all. Look forward to chopping it up with you again next week live. In the meantime, you'll get videos from me over the weekend. You'll have a video. We'll get into the conversation surrounding what was the biggest what the F moment of the 2022 season for you as a Commanders fan. So if you haven't left a comment, you would like to be a part of that discussion, go watch that video, leave a comment in the comment section, and you may be a part of that episode. I'll be reacting to those comments, and that video will probably be up on Saturday, if I had to guess. So be on the lookout for that. If anything breaks with this team from an offensive coordinator standpoint, I'll be all over that. But in the meantime, you guys enjoy your weekend. No football. I mean, unless you're into the Pro Bowl sort of thing, knock yourself out. But you're about to enter into USFL, XFL territory here shortly. That should be fun, I guess. But no football this week. First time since early August that you don't have NFL games, or was it late August, early September? I think with no fourth preseason game, there was a week there with no football. So, yeah, you got some time on your hands this weekend to get shit done. Enjoy it. I think the temperatures are supposed to warm up on the East Coast, man. It's been cold as shit this week. Looking forward to getting out of the house and, doing something. Shout out to XL the Truth. Ran into him at the gym the other day. It was nice encountering a viewer of the show. Let me just tell y'all something before I go. Don't be offering me shit and thinking I'm not going to take advantage of it. Like XL the Truth, I ran into him at the gym, big guy who looked like he could play in the NFL, probably every bit of 6'4", probably about a good, he looked like he was about a good solid 285 muscle, muscle bound, big guy, right? He said he owns a boxing gym. And he was like, man, it's right up the street, man. If you want to roll through anytime, don't tell me that shit, man. Okay? Don't tell me that shit. Because when I roll out, and I'm like, yo, this is dope, because I used to box at my old gym, and I'm looking for somewhere where I can get into some shit. And you tell me, hey, roll through. And then I roll through, and I'm like, yo, this is dope. And I keep rolling through, you and be like, yo, this dude, Louie T, man, I'm going to have to charge his ass in a little bit, man. He coming through too much. All right? So I'm just warning you, okay? Don't be offering me free shit, and then I say, oh, yeah, I'll take it. Unless you really go hold up your end of the bargain, okay? I'm warning you. Anyway, I digress. You guys enjoy your weekend. Shout out to my guy, XL the Truth. It was nice meeting you. And I look forward to chopping it up with y'all in the near future. If you're a fan of the pod, we'll have one of those tomorrow, among other things. You should get a short from me tomorrow. It won't be the start of the series, but it'll be information that is necessary to the start of the series. So be on the lookout for that tomorrow as well. Anyway, I digress. You guys, enjoy the rest of your evening. Take care. And as always, God bless and good night. And post up and take command. Y'all have a good one.
LouieTeeNetwork.